Expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Monday. It's June 25th. We have a really exciting show for you today. I want to cut through some of the chase here and remind you that at 9:30, in just 1/2 hour, we're going to be joined via Skype by Dr. Mike Dorsey from Endicott College. This is a really exciting interview that we've been looking forward to for a while, and you won't want to miss that. We also are going to be chatting with a mommy blogger in Denmark at 10:30 today. So some really exciting things. All in all, though, we're going to be with you live for the next 3 hours talking about topics having to do with autism and how we can be more effective, more efficient working with our children on the autism spectrum so that we can help them to reach their highest and fullest potential. We know that all of our kids are different. They all have different trajectories, They all are going to start in different places, have different skills deficits, have different skill abilities, and they're all going to end up in different places. But we know that progress is available for all of our children, no matter where they are in this big, wide spectrum that we're all hanging out on, right? There's progress for all of them. And one of the big things that we talk about here is ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, because we know that ABA is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. And by the way, it happens to be effective for all of our kids in that we're going to see progress. No matter where our child starts on the spectrum, we are going to be able to target certain behaviors, build skills, and also eliminate or decrease some challenging behaviors, no matter where they are on the spectrum, which is fabulous. But also, by the way, it happens to be something that's effective for all of us. It isn't just for children on the spectrum. I think this is one of the most fascinating things to talk about with people because there is this assumption of, oh, well, then ABA, if it's that effective for kids on the spectrum, then it must have been invented for kids on the spectrum. No, in fact, it's an age-old science that had been around quite a long time before autism was even a term that was used, and it focuses on behavior. And since all of us are exhibiting behavior even now, in fact, every moment that we're here and breathing, we're exhibiting behavior, it is effective for all of us. So we talk about the tools for ABA, we talk about it a lot because there's a lot to talk about. And because all of our kids are different, we're going to take these tools and apply them in a different way. It's a really creative art, is what I'm coming to understand. And it's something that is not only going to enrich our relationship with the child in our life that's on the spectrum, but it might help us to see things for ourselves in different ways and have a richer, fuller life while we're there. Could anything be better than that? I mean, come on. It's like Oprah in a box, right? So we do talk about it a lot, and I get excited about it because, not because I'm a behavior expert, because I'm not because I have a degree in behavior sciences, I don't, I'm not a BCBA, but I'm a mom. And as a mom on this journey, I'm an autism mom. In fact, my son was diagnosed with autism when he was 2.5. He just turned 9. And I can tell you, and I'm here to tell you on a daily basis, I got my child back through the use of really good intensive ABA, which I got from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So if it seems like I'm a huge fan of theirs, make no mistake, I am. They gave me my child back. But I not only did I get my child back, I have a much better relationship than I had ever planned on having with my child. And my son is remarkable. I don't know what else to say. You know, he's still a work in progress, right? As any 9-year-old would be. But he went from being a nonverbal child to being a very verbal child. And we talk about his feelings and his thoughts and his concerns for the world. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for that. He is off this morning for his first day of marine biology camp. It's just a 1-week thing. I was saying to Emily, it sounds a little bit more exciting than I think it actually is, but he's excited about it, and he's off to do that. And listen, when he was 2.5, and the first person who diagnosed him looked at me and said, well, you know, we don't know what's going to be possible, and enjoy this child as long as you can, with the spoken implication that there might come a time when I would have to have him removed from our home and put into some sort of assisted living. That's not the case. My son has already picked out which college he wants to go to, and Mommy has already picked out the apartment around the corner. So, in any case, ABA, all of our children are different again, but all of our children can gain skills, and then we get to see what their fullest potential is, where they're going to end up being, but progress is available for all of our kids. So we do talk about ABA a lot. And when we talk, it is always meant to be a conversation, a two-way conversation, a multiple two-way conversation, right? So I want to talk a little bit about how you can participate and let us know. You can be asking our guests today questions. You can be suggesting topics that you would like to have covered on another day on the show or even today. And things that express your opinions, things that you like here on the show, things that you'd like to see more of, things that you'd like to see less of. Because really, we're here to support you. If I hadn't had help from people along the way, my son wouldn't be doing so well. So I'm here to just be a conduit to all the good things. I have access to experts on your behalf. So tell me what you need, tell me what you want, and I will do my level best to track it down for you. How's that for a deal? And it's all free, right? You can't find anything better than that. It's all free. So if you're watching us here on autism-live.com, you will see in front of you a box that says live or rebroadcast. If it says live, there's another box next to it that says your questions. You can just put your cursor in that box, type away, hit enter, and it shows up here on my screen live. You can try it out right now if you'd like to. If you are watching and it says rebroadcast, or you're watching us in any of the other ways that you can watch us, then there are still lots of ways that you can interact with us. One of them being email. So we're going to start to show you some of those things on the screen. There's your email address that you can write to us, and we will be happy to cover your question on the next available live show, and we will send you a typewritten response as well. So I know we had a question in particular over the week that we're going to cover a little bit later on today. So if you wrote in, please know it is coming. Also, if you want to call in, you certainly can. We have a phone line, and if you want to be patched into the live show, we would love to have a conversation with you or have you be able to ask a guest a question. If it is not during a live show, you can leave us a message and we will get back to you at the next available moment that we can and answer your question in that way. If you don't want to talk on the live show, but you have a burning desire, something you want to talk to somebody about, then you can call into the number, and there are people standing by waiting to take your phone call. And you don't have to be patched into the studio. So just to let you know that. I know some of you are shy, and that's okay. By the way, if you're not shy, you can also Skype in with us. We're going to have 2 Skype interviews in particular today with Dr. Mike Dorsey and with an awesome mommy blogger who's going to be Skyping in from Denmark. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know if this is our first overseas Skype in that we've had planned. I think it is, but it is. I'm told by Emily that it is, in fact, our first overseas planned Skype call. So that will be really, really fun. And you can Skype in too if you'd like to. And if you have picture capability, we'll include your picture. If you don't, we'll talk to you audio only. So whatever works for you. By the way, you can also interact with us on Facebook. And we have a rather new Facebook page. So if you should go there, and we encourage you to go there, please give us a like when you're there. We really love it when you interact with us answering the question of the day there. You can also tweet with us as well. I'm new to Twitter, but I'm happy to tweet away with you, and that's a wonderful way that you can stay in contact with us. I also mentioned that there are other ways to watch the show besides autism-live.com. You can be watching us on Blip TV, blip.tv. That's a wonderful way that you can search topics. You can find the latest interviews that we've done with experts around the globe, and you can pause, rewind, fast forward. It makes it really convenient. It's like your own personal DVR. By the way, you can also do that on our YouTube channel, another way in which you can watch us. Again, all of these ways are free. YouTube is a fabulous way to catch up on small little snippets, interviews that we've done in the past. Really exciting, so that you can kind of compare what different experts have to say about toilet training or bullying or teaching language, all of those different things. And you can also download us for free on iTunes. We love it when you subscribe to us there, and especially when you give us a review on iTunes. Favorable or otherwise, we just love it when you guys interact with us. And don't want to leave out that you can also be watching us on Ustream. Check us out there. We appreciate them hosting us there on Ustream. If there is a way that you are aware of that we are not covered, that you would like to see us and you know about it, please do us a favor and write to us, or call us or Skype us or Facebook us or tweet us and let us know, because if we're not there, it's probably because we don't know about it. We would sure appreciate the information. We know that there are lots of things that you know that we don't know, so we always love your input. We like to start every morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of the day when we take one word, one phrase, one anagram, and try to demystify it, because whether you're a parent, a teacher, or practitioner, we know that being an effective, efficient member of your child's team is really important to you, right? And part of being effective and efficient on that team is making friends with the jargon. Oh, I know, it's painful, right? Especially in the beginning. But we do this the same way we work with our kids. If we take it into little small bite-sized increments and try to make it reinforcing so that it's not as painful, then over time we see that we begin to understand these terms, or at least be able to understand them within the context of our individual children, which is really essential if we want to be effective and efficient. So we give you the actual definition for something and then give you the working definition for it. If you still aren't clear once we get through the working definition, please don't despair. Sometimes these terms take a couple of different times and a little bit of experience looking at your child and going, oh, right, that's what they were talking about on Autism Live. I get it now. Sometimes the light bulb just goes off. In any case, our anagram for the day is EIBI. This is a really important term that we're going to be using throughout the week. So what on earth, when people talk about, well, EIBI, do you have it? Do you not have it? Trust me, you want it. All right, so let's take a look at our actual definition, which is early intensive behavioral intervention. Right? So what all does that mean? Our working definition is ABA therapy as soon as possible. Now, let's talk a little bit about the science of this. What we know, and what we've seen in several different studies, lots of different studies in fact, is that there's that thing that is referred to sometimes in our community as the window. I want to be really clear that when I started on this journey, they would talk about the window, and I always visualize, when you talk about a window, I visualized it closing. I want you to know that that's not the way we need to look at this window, okay? What they talk about when they talk about the window is, we know that if a child starts ABA therapy between 3 and 5, they are not as far behind as if they start when they are 6. And as a result of that, outcomes tend to be better because there's less to be caught up. So you want to start as soon as you possibly can. But if you have a child who's 8 and hasn't had ABA therapy or hasn't had enough ABA therapy, I want you to consider this. You could lament that you didn't start when they were 4 and take the next week lamenting that. And heaven knows you're entitled to it. And please know that all the feelings and emotions that you have, you're entitled to. But if you take that week, you're starting a week later than you could be. So I'm going to ask you to just consider the phrase that we use here sometimes: when would now be a good time? And it's now, right? When would now be a good time? Now. Start as early as you can. If we're looking at a sliding scale and saying, how far behind is my child? If we get a child when they are 2.5 and they are only 3 months behind, stop and consider how long it takes to catch a child up when they're 3 months behind. All children are different, so it's going to take different. I can't give you, oh, it takes 2 months to catch a child up, 3 months. Different kids, different speeds, right? But we can all relate to the fact that catching up 3 months is a lot less work than catching up 3 years, and is a lot less work than catching up 10 years. So early, intensive behavioral intervention as soon as we can, whenever that is. Forgive yourself for what you didn't know on day 1. Forgive yourself for what you didn't know on day 342. I told you my son was diagnosed at 2.5 and he's now 9. What I don't know is endless and boundless still, but I can only function on what I know today. And what I know today and what I have to share with you is that early, intensive behavioral intervention is what made the difference for my child. And he's not the only one. So start as early as you can. And when we say intensive, because that configuration that we know that if we start a child early, we also know that there's an amount. That intensive between 25 and 40 hours is what has been shown to be across the board the most effective. So between 25 and 40 hours. I know there are some of you that are sitting there right now where you go, oh, well, I just got funded for 15 hours. So what does this mean for me? Well, what it means is that you're going to come here and we're going to help you to figure out how to get at least another 10 hours on board, even if it's you doing it. We know that this takes a team, that you got to have a team of people who are working with your children so that you're making sure that you're setting your child up for generalization, right? We talk about this, and I know we're going to talk about it later on in the week, but we want generalization where a child is able to learn a skill and be able to do it in a wide variety of different ways and actually make the leap to being able to do the skill in situations where they haven't been taught it, right? And the best possible way that we can set our children up to do that is by changing things up and not always having the same person doing it. So you've got to have at least 2 people, ideally at 3 people at a minimum, to be delivering this intensive ABA. And when you do, it's got to be quality, right? You can't just have anybody. There's specifics, tools to be applied, but we're going to be here helping you to find your way to that. All right? Early, intensive behavioral intervention. Early and intensive as soon as possible. No guilt trips today, right? No judgments about what you didn't know. Start as soon as you can, and you can start today. We'll talk more about how you can do that. Okay, we also always have a question of the day for you, and the question of the day kind of goes hand in hand. How did I go backwards? I went backwards. There we go. Okay, this is something that I've been asking you guys for a while, but now I'm asking it formally. What is the biggest stumbling block that is preventing you from getting the proper amount of ABA therapy? And I want you to, for some of you might go, well, duh, it's this, right? But I want to see what the answers are because I don't think it is a duh. The longer I've been here and the more I ask parents this, it's really different for different people. Of course, there are some of you who are going to say funding. And you know what? You can't scare me. Bring those things here because there are ways to solve it. I'm going to tell you right now that there's no way that my family could afford the therapy that my son had, but we figured it out. And I'll tell you how we figured it out is that we looked at how other people were figuring it out because it was beyond me. I was too overwhelmed, too underslept to have figured it out by myself. So I want you to know I'm here. If funding is the issue, bring it. We're going to be talking about funding later on. If it's your time schedule, let's help you to solve that. If it's that you still have to work in order to be able to afford this and to be able to have access to the insurance, which is going to pay for it, tell us what these things are so that we can help you to solve them and say to you, oh, well, here's how this other person has worked that out. Is there a way that that could work for you? Bring us your problems. We want to problem solve with you, not for you, but with you, to help you, to connect you with the information that you need to get over whatever the hurdle is. I know some of you have written in, and this was a big shocker to me, some of you have written in and said it's your fear for your neurotypical child that they're going to get lost in the shuffle. Please let us know what your stumbling block is so we can help you to overcome it, so that you can get EIBI in its full strength. You know, for those of you who are having 15 hours right now, I want you to know you do need to make that leap to get it to 25 to 40. Imagine if the pediatrician sent you home with an antibiotic and said you need to take this for 10 days and you got to take 25 milligrams, but I'm only going to give you 13. Right? Would there be any doubt in our minds that at the end of 10 days we were back there going, this antibiotic didn't work? Well, the prescription here is 25 to 40 hours a week. That's not going to be the case for all of our kids, right? If you've got an 18-year-old who's doing well and just needs a little support, clearly that's not the case. But for our younger kids who are more affected by autism, 25 to 40 hours is really where we see the most progress. So that's where we want to be. Okay, we always have a topic of the day, and the topic of the day has turned into the topic of the week, right? But the topic this week is starting EIBI, how we set ourselves up for success, how we get ourselves to the point where that first therapist is at the door and we're ready to go. It's a difficult time. I have to say, it's one of the more difficult times. As a parent who has gone through this, and my son has graduated from his ABA program, I always think of it as, okay, there's the waiting period before, there's the getting used to it, then the long haul, because this is at least a 2-year minimum, right? And then there's the exit strategy. I'm in the exit strategy now. We've been out for a year and I'm still finding my way, but by far, I think that starting, getting it all ramped up, getting it in place was the hardest period of time. So we're going to hopefully help you to sort some of that out and make it a little bit easier, maybe save you 5 minutes and $5, maybe more. Let's hope so. All right, so some of the different things that we are going to be having on the show today, I mentioned earlier because I couldn't help myself. Dr. Mike Dorsey from Endicott College is going to be joining us in just a few minutes, and he is an expert in a bunch of different things, but in particularly, he's an expert in placement for academic placement for students. So he will be called upon frequently to testify in court cases as the expert of record about what is appropriate for an individual child. Sometimes he's there on behalf of the school district, and sometimes he's there on behalf of parents. So what a wealth of knowledge he is about what is appropriate for our children, what kinds of things we should be considering as a parent, how as a parent we can know if what the school is offering is the appropriate setting, because you know what, sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. So how do we sort that out if we're not experts in setting? We're going to ask him those questions and more. He has a program that he's going to tell us about that is a part of Endicott College that is training for paraprofessionals. It's really exciting. So excited to talk to him. We are also going to have a guest mommy blogger with us at 10:30. If you're noticing I'm not saying her name, it's because I am so terrified of saying it wrong. She is a mom who is currently living in Denmark and finishing up her graduate studies there with her husband, but she is originally from Iceland, and her name is, I believe, Ragga. but I'm not even going to try to say the last name. I'm going to let her say it. But she's going to be joining us here at 10:30, and we're going to talk a little bit more about her blog and what kinds of things she covered. I'll tell you what, she really got my attention when she did a blog for Autism Awareness Day about the top 10 myths having to do with autism. And you know I'm all about dispelling these myths. So, and then notice that one of the other things that we're going to be talking about today is giving you a funding tip, because I do know that that's a part of this journey. I absolutely get that, and we need to be creative, right? We got to think outside the box. So today we're going to give you some outside the box tips on getting funding so that you can get this done. Isn't that what we all want to do, is get this done? All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I believe we are going to have Dr. Mike Dorsey via Skype. So now is a great time if you want to ask a question about placement or IEPs or anything at all, because he really is an expert who's training the next generation of experts in autism. So stick with us. Back with Mike Dorsey in just a few minutes.
My name is Crystal Shepard.
I'm Pete.
And our son Logan was diagnosed in February of 2003. Wow, it seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
We were fortunate enough to find CARD when he was 20 months old. My husband called and said, "You need to go to this place. I've researched it. You need to go right now." So I went and knocked on the door, and we found Doreen.
Doreen, we sat down, and I'll never forget what she said. She goes, "Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get him caught up and make sure he never falls behind again." I was like, that's it, you know. And
he's a very fun, popular kid. He
Rock
never
star.
Rock star. He's a drummer, quite an accomplished drummer. He never stops talking. He's got a funny story and a smile for everybody that he meets. And it's pretty amazing. He's a completely different kid. Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
My name's Monica.
And I'm Mark.
And we have a son, Riley, and he is autistic.
Riley was almost completely non-communicative at the time that he was diagnosed. Really no language, no interest in speaking. And one of the big changes is he independently states a lot of things now.
I need to walk.
You need to walk? Make him walk. Asks for things that he wants, responds appropriately.
Hi, Daddy Dory.
Oh, so nice. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
And now she engages with everybody. It's wonderful. She likes to play, and she's very affectionate, and she expresses that now. Her language has gotten a lot better just in the last 4 months. It's amazing.
Since starting with CARD, Amaya's made a ton of progress, and we couldn't be more grateful that she has become potty trained, started using utensils individually. She is learning how to navigate public, is holding our hands, and is just wanting to be around people more. So we're so grateful. for everything that you guys have done.
Hi, Dr. Grandpa. Congratulations on your 20-year anniversary of GARD. I love all my GARD teachers. They are the best. And now I'd like to play you a Beatles song. It's called Cross the Universe.
I first saw Dr. Grandpa speak at a biomedical conference somewhere, and I was just so impressed with her. She stood up there and she talked with such confidence about recovery and what she could do for these children, and she had a whole curriculum, and I was just so impressed. But she said things like, you know, teach them, help them to develop these other skills that they have. And I thought that was so neat hearing that from her, that it would be good for them socially and help them to bridge with others. And so over the years, that's actually something my son has developed. You know, if he hadn't had speech therapy or OT over the years, he probably would be just about, you know, pretty much the same child still, not so different. But if he hadn't had CARD, I mean, he would be a completely different child. This program has unlocked the door for him to have a bright future.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
My name is Rachel Pokorski, and I have a son, Kyle Pokorski, who's 7 years old now.
Cool art by Kyle.
Around 15 months, we noticed that he had lost some speech, that he was headbanging, he had tantrums, and we were lucky. We waited and we got in with CARD, and it started working right away.
I have another exciting feature. If you put more marbles in, they alternate.
He's in a second grade class. He's at the top of his class. He reads over 100 words a minute. He's reading at 5th grade level. He loves space and astronomy, and he'll tell you, you know, why does Venus rotate backwards? Yeah, why don't the marbles go up? Why do they go down?
Because gravity.
And he's always wanting to know more.
Why you're the one that takes the microphone?
He loves to surf.
First, I didn't want to surf, but now I love to surf.
He loves to horseback ride.
I won a trophy.
You have made a difference in his life.
CARD helped me to save.
I owe everything to you. Now, who built this?
I did.
And are you a good builder?
Yes.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are joined right now via Skype by Dr. Michael Dorsey, and he is the director of the Institute of Behavioral Studies at Endicott College. Dr. Dorsey, are you there?
I am.
Okay, so look at you there. So great to have you here this morning. We've been talking a little bit about you, but I'd like to hear from you. What exactly is it that you do at Endicott College?
I am a professor of education. I teach courses in special education and applied behavior analysis through the Institute for Behavioral Studies, and work with a team of just wonderful faculty members who've helped to develop this into the program it is today.
For parents at home who are watching us, you know, when we're on this journey, sometimes like we feel like we're terribly alone on this journey. Like there's nobody else in the world who's working on autism. But I've been learning over the last couple of years that nothing could be further from the truth. And you and I were both just at a conference where there were seemingly thousands of people who were professionals working in the field of ABA, a lot of them working with children on the autism spectrum, some of them not. But I'm always amazed, and I think our viewers would be amazed, to find out how many people are studying autism and studying ABA. So tell us a little bit about what you experience at Endicott College and the wide range of things that you guys teach people there.
Well, let me start off by just saying the Association for Behavior Analysis International is the conference that that you're referring to. And the one we were at was in Seattle, Washington. And it's the annual meeting of ABAI. They have a number of other conferences that are run on an annual basis and some more sporadically over the course of time. But that particular conference, on average, draws somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 people from around the world. ABAI has affiliate chapters, I believe, in 20 to 30 different countries around the world. And all of those affiliate chapters in ABAI as a whole have about 18,000 members. Here in Massachusetts, we have the Massachusetts Association for Behavior Analysis. We have about, well, close to 1,000 board-certified behavior analysts practicing in Massachusetts. And we are as far as numbers, the third largest in the country behind Florida and California. But if you look at geography or population density, we actually have the most BCBAs in the country.
So hard to feel alone when we're talking about that many people.
Well, when you're in Massachusetts, it's hard to feel alone because there's a lot of people around. And that doesn't even account for the fairly large number of people who are absolutely qualified, well-trained, have great experience working in behavior analysis and with kids on the spectrum who are not BCBAs.
Yes.
You know, we probably figured that there's got to be another 200 or 300 people that would meet that category here in Massachusetts. So yeah, it's hard to feel alone here. In other states, there's not nearly as many. But they're all over the country.
But you're helping to train people so that there will be more all over the country and all over the world, correct?
We are. We've got about 250 graduate students in our program here at Endicott College in a variety of different training options.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those different training options?
Sure. Basically, we have two kinds of programs that we run through the Institute. The first group are what you would call degree-granting programs. At the master's level, we have courses that basically run from paraprofessional through master's level. At the master's level, they break down into special education licensing programs with a BCBA. Which is very unusual. We're one of the only programs in the country. I know Ohio State does it, but we're one of the only ones that certainly locally in New England that does it. And someone can come here and get a special ed license, either at the moderate or severe level, and their BCBA all in one degree. We also have a SPED program, that master's program without a license. So if you want to be like an administrator in a private program for kids on the spectrum but don't want to be licensed as a teacher, you can go through that program and end up getting your master's in special education with a BCBA. And then most recently, Mary Jane Weiss, who joined us about a year ago, started a master's degree in autism and behavior analysis, where it's not a licensing program, but it focuses specifically on issues related to the autism spectrum and treating kids on the spectrum. And you get that master's and your BCBA. Or when I say you get your BCBA, let me qualify that by saying you meet the requirements, the educational requirements to sit for the BCBA exam.
Right.
On top of that, as far as degree granting programs, we will be launching this fall, and it's been completely approved by all the various entities that need to do it. We have an undergraduate concentration, which is sort of like a minor in autism and applied behavior analysis. So we'll have juniors and seniors at the undergraduate level taking courses in applied behavior analysis, doing an intensive practicum at at Futures Behavior Therapy here in Beverly, and coming away meeting the qualifications to sit for the BCABA exam. And then beyond that, we have a number of certification or certificate programs. We have For people who already have a master's and want to get their BCBA, we have the 5-course sequence that they can take. We have a SPED license program, moderate and severe, just like the one I talked about before. We have our CABA-TEC program, which you and I have talked about in the past, which is the certificate program for paraprofessionals and teachers' aides.
Yeah, let's take a minute to talk about CABA-TEC too, because I think you know me a little bit, and I'm a big advocate for making sure that anyone who comes in contact with a child on the spectrum, or really any child, should have behavioral information and have those tools in their tool belt to be able to help all children, because it's not just children on the spectrum that need behavioral support. And I see that there's a big gap sometimes in what a district thinks that they need, but everybody needs to have training. And you have this really ingenious CABA-TEC program. Tell us a little bit about what it is.
We do. Let me just mention real quickly, though,
sure,
that one other certificate or certification that I don't want to miss before we go to CABA-TEC is Mary Jane Weiss has, for people who have a master's degree and a BCBA, can come back and get a certification in autism. Which I think is pretty unusual. We're one of only a few programs in the country that does that. So it focuses on things like social skills and language, and there's actually a course, and I call it How to Play Nice in the Sandbox. It's how to work with other professional disciplines and how to be part of a really well-functioning IEP team.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's a great program. It really is. Mary Jane's done a great job with us. And Tom Zane, who joined us from Sage College, has worked like crazy over the last 2 years and has gotten basically all of this online. So you can get certificates, certifications, and full master's degrees in all of these various programs, thanks to Tom, online or online and face-to-face in sort of a combination, a blended model, if you will.
Wonderful.
But let me tell you about CABA-TEC. CABA-TEC is something we're really proud of. It is a program that we designed. It's based on what's called a PSI, Personalized System of Instruction teaching protocol, that basically means it's self-paced. What we did was we looked at what the skills are that someone needs to be able to function as a paraprofessional or teacher's aide in a classroom, or for parents who've got kids that are living at home and they're working with a behaviors person, they're working with a BCBA, but they really just don't understand exactly how to carry out all these various kinds of protocols and training programs and stuff. So we've had a lot of parents coming to us and taking this program. What we did was we went through a very long process of surveying people in the field and reaching out to them and getting them to tell us what are the basic skills that are necessary to be an effective frontline person that is the person sitting there working with the kid on the floor. What are the skills they need? This is not a program that teaches you to understand the sort of underpinnings that go along with it. This is a skills-based program,
right?
And that's what's very important. So we basically took all of that information and we divided those skills into 5 different learning sets, and then each learning set has modules within it. There are 28 different modules across 5 different sets. And basically what you do is you start with module 1 in learning set 1, and you do that one. You can watch an online lecture. You have some reading material to do. You take a written quiz that's online. Once you pass that quiz with 100% accuracy, and you can keep retaking it, going to a proctor, working with them just like you and I are dealing here on Skype. You can talk to that proctor to try to get to understand better what it is you're missing on the exam, what you don't understand. But then, and this is where I think our program is really different than most, is then you have to demonstrate that skill with a peer, not with a kid, but with a peer. You have to demonstrate it. We do procedural reliability checks to make sure that you're doing it correctly in the way you were trained. You send us a video recording, or we watch you live on Skype. We give you feedback. Once you pass that, Then you have to demonstrate the skill with a child, with someone that you're working with. Maybe you're working with adults with autism. Whoever it is the group that you're providing services to, you have to demonstrate that skill with that population. Again, we do procedural reliability checks. We make sure that you're doing it correctly. We give you feedback on it. You may have to repeat it once, twice, 3 times, but eventually you're going to master that skill. Once you do that, then you've finished one of those 28 modules.
Wow.
You can go through this training as quickly as you want or as slow as you want to pace it. That's why it's called the self-paced program. So you can kind of work your way through it. For people that are working full-time and have a home life and family, maybe they can only do it over maybe a 12-month period. For other people, they may finish it much more quickly.
Okay, and so it sounds absolutely wonderful. And if a parent is interested in finding out more information about it because they have an aide that they want to make sure is trained properly, where would they need to go to find that information?
There is Endicott College has a website, just like everyone else. If you go on Endicott's website, you can go to the Institute for Behavioral Studies. There is information about it. There's all the details about what it is and how it works. And the contact people, Emily White is the person who is the director of the CABA-TEC program. You can contact Emily, you can contact me, or Dr. Malcolm Patterson, who is our dean that oversees the Institute for Behavioral Studies. So any one of the 3 of us will be more than happy to talk to people.
And when a person finishes, they get a certificate saying that they have completed the program.
They do.
And I would imagine that would be useful for them in gaining jobs or promotions or keeping their job in this economy. To be certified in something like that would demonstrate a level of expertise that would be desirable.
We're finding that that's true. We're actually finding that some school districts are giving aides raises, merit raises based on completing this program. It's a transportable certificate. Just because you work for one school district when you get it doesn't mean that if you go to another school district you lose it. This is something that the individual becomes certified and they can take it with them where they will. Interestingly enough, and I know you and I spend a lot of time talking about Bureau of Special Ed Appeals, but a lot of parents are going to the Bureau of Special Ed Appeals in their hearings and asking that not only do they want a one-to-one aide for their child, but they want a CABA-TEC certified one-to-one aide.
Absolutely, because you know it's not enough to just have an aide, right? You got to have an aide who knows what they're doing at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And I mentioned before you joined us that you are an expert in placement. So we're going to take a little bit of a break, but when we come back, Dr. Dorsey, I want to talk to you a little bit about placement and how you determine what is appropriate placement, and maybe get some advice for parents about things that they should know about what's going on in school and what is appropriate placement for their children. Are you up for that?
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Okay, great. Let's take a short break, and we'll be back with Dr. Dorsey in just a couple of minutes.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. I was an institution, a hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, you know, make simple desire requests, I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now. and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
My name is Deli Popola, and I'm one of the creators of thehotspot.com. Thehotspot.com is an online support system for families and specialists who are affected by autism across the whole world. Share inspirational stories, find resources in their area. Hope you can join.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and our special guest on this Monday morning is Dr. Mike Dorsey. He is the director of the Institute for Behavioral Studies at Endicott College. Did I get that right, Dr. Dorsey?
Yes, you did, Shannon.
Okay, and we were mentioning before the break that you are an expert in educational placement. So my understanding is that you get called in from time to time to look at a situation and even to testify when people have gone to due process about what is the appropriate placement. Sometimes you're there for the school and sometimes you're there for the parent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And tell us a little bit about how, when you go into a school, what are you looking for that informs your decision about what appropriate placement is?
Well, first of all, just a slight correction.
Okay.
What I'm really looking at is more about the services that are being provided and not the placement per se.
Okay.
In my opinion, public school systems can, if they choose to provide appropriate services, can serve probably 95 to 97% of all the kids on the autism spectrum that I've ever seen in Massachusetts. Very often they choose not to provide the services necessary. Very recently, I just gave a talk to the Massachusetts Elementary School Principals Association and basically explained to them how they could provide appropriate services to the kids on the spectrum and save an awful lot of money by avoiding having to put them in out-of-district placements in order to get appropriate services. There is that small percentage of children whose self-injury or aggressive behavior is so severe that they really do need a private placement. But very often, public schools, if they choose to provide the right services, can do it right there in the public school. So what I'm really looking at is the services that are being provided, the number of hours a day, the number of days a week, the qualifications of the staff, the type of educational services that are being provided, whether there's, for example, a lot of downtime in the school day, whether the child is being actively engaged in educational activities 6 hours a day, 5 days a week.
And that's a lot to look at. But when you're looking at that, I know we've talked about this before, you kind of have what I refer to as a secret weapon, that something that you ask for when you go into the classroom that was really eye-opening to me and I think tells a lot about what's happening at the school. So tell us, and it's me that's saying it's your secret weapon. I don't think it's so much of a weapon, but it's like a litmus test. What do you ask the schools for?
Well, like I said, these children are in school for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I want to make sure that every minute of that day is being used to the benefit of that child. So one of the things that I always ask for is a schedule. I want to know what the child's doing, breaking it down in the day down into 15-minute, maybe 30-minute blocks every day of the week, and I want to know within each one of those 15 to 30-minute blocks what the activity is that the child's involved in, whether it's circle time or centers time, or it's an older child and they're in a reading group or whatever. But I also want to know what IEP goal or objective is being addressed in that particular activity, and I want to know what teaching technique is being used, whether it's discrete trial or whether it's some other kind of behavior analytic experimentally validated procedure that the teacher is using.
And I got to tell you, as a former teacher, I think this is brilliant because, just the school's response to this, and I'm sure you've had many different responses, is going to give you a whole bunch of information. But give us an example. If you ask a school for that, what can you glean from that?
Well, for example, you go into a classroom and you see this 3-year-old child who is cognitively impaired and pretty severely autistic, and they've got them in circle time in the morning with 6 or 8 other children. Some of them have aides sitting behind them, some don't. The teacher's in front of this entire group, and the teacher's going around one child at a time and asking them questions, what the day of the week is, what the month is, how many days are left in the school year. That always seems to be a big thing. What the weather is outside. It's rainy here today, so they'd have to go up and put a little thing. Well, one of the things I do is I watch and I take some data on how often that child that I'm there to see has an opportunity to respond in that circle time. And what is it that the teacher, what goal and objective that the parents have agreed to with the school district and written into the IEP, what goal and objective is being worked on in that circle time? Because it's a very low demand. They're probably, with 6 or 8 other kids in the circle, they're probably only getting an opportunity to respond maybe every 3 to 5 minutes, which is, you know, the child is sitting there, and if they've got any kind of probability of behavioral issues, that's going to be a real high probability time to start acting out because they have nothing else to do. They're not getting a lot of reinforcement. They're not getting asked questions. They're not getting a lot of attention, yet there they sit. So they're starting to hit the kid next to them or fidget and jump up and down and run around. It's not necessarily a good situation.
Right.
And it's not a time for social interaction. You want the child to sit there and be quiet and listen to what's going on. So you don't want to be prompting social interaction. So what else are you going to do?
Yeah, it's certainly not a recipe for success in that circumstance.
No, it's not.
For that child. But I imagine that there are some schools, when you ask for this document, this schedule that separates the day and has matching goals with each one of the activities, that there are some schools that are able to give you that schedule same day. And that then you can go in and observe and see that what's on the paper is actually what's happening.
Absolutely. So there are some very, very good public schools here in Massachusetts that provide really high quality educational services to kids on the spectrum, and they do a great job. And if I ask them for something like this, even if they don't have it on hand, they haven't like actually put it together the way I'm asking, they can put it together in a matter of minutes, and they have no problem giving it to me.
Right, because the thought is there. And I think for a parent, that's got to be the ultimate goal. You work and work and work and fight and fight and fight to get the IEP a certain way, and then a lot of times the disappointment is that the stuff that's in the IEP is not actually showing up in the classroom. So I think this is a brilliant, brilliant test to, first of all, see, do they have it written down? Is the plan written down? And then to see, is it being implemented? So I gotta love that. I also imagine that when you ask for this of some schools, that there's a lot of hemming and hawing because not only does the document not exist, the plan doesn't exist. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. And in fact, the majority of the school districts that I ask for this, they're very hesitant to try to put it together. They've really never given it that thought. And then the other part that's got to go along with this is within each of those different blocks, I want to see the educational protocol that the teacher's following. What are the written instructions that they should be following? So if it's a time, say it's a centers-based time, when kids move from one center to the next, and one of the things you're supposed to be doing is working on social skills. Well, is there a protocol for teaching that child how to interact socially with his peers? What are the steps that are involved? What step is the child on now? What's the reinforcement procedure? What's the error correction procedure? How exactly is that being done so that if different people within the classroom receive that child in a different center as the child goes through the morning, making sure that everybody is responding to that child in exactly the same way. And more often than not, when I ask for copies of educational protocols that go along with all the goals and objectives, they can't provide me those either.
And I have to be honest, I think that if a teacher had that, if somebody were to give the teacher the educational protocol, most of the teachers that I know would be overjoyed and elated.
And then tagged onto that is the data collection system.
Yeah.
First it's the schedule, Then it's the educational protocol, maybe a behavior support plan if there's some challenging behavior, and then a data collection system that goes along with it. When you've got all of that in line and I walk into that classroom, I pick up the phone, I call the parents, and I say, you know what, you're in a good school.
Yeah, yeah, what a wonderful thing. So for parents, and I really want to look at it from the parents' point of view right now, what kinds of mistakes do parents make that you could give them some advice of how they can get to that? What should they be doing to make that more possible?
Well, first of all, is working in a cooperative way as best they can with the school district, and not going into it with an antagonistic sort of an attitude, not demanding an independent educational evaluation before their child's ever had their first day in class. Trying to work with the school district, seeing what the school district's got to offer, what opportunities there are, what kinds of people that are working in that school district, and then trying to be part of a functional team. I think that's the best place to start.
Yeah, I can just feel, though, parents everywhere sighing because they're wanting to know where to find the school that has all those things in place that you were talking about. And of course, the vast majority don't have those things in place. But even I, as a parent, want to know, how can I help my school to get that in place?
I think it's an educational process for the school itself. I mean, you really need to bring to the leadership in the school district evidence that ABA is in fact the type of educational approach for kids on the spectrum that is the most widely recognized, the most supported. I mean, everybody from the Surgeon General to the National Science Foundation, and the list goes on and on and on. Say that ABA is what you should be using with these children. And if you need to go and you need to educate the SPED director or the superintendent or even the school board, I mean, if you really look at it carefully, this is a cost-benefit analysis that school districts need to do. And if they look at it objectively, they can actually provide appropriate services and save money at the same time.
Well, you know what I'm going to do, Dr. Dorsey, is I'm going to, when this interview is up on YouTube tomorrow, I'm going to send this interview to my school district. And I'm going to advocate that everyone else does that as well, because I think you just said it really succinctly, and I couldn't hope to say it as succinctly as you just did. So thank you for that. One more question, because I know we have to let you go. As someone who is educating this next generation of autism experts, what can you tell our parents and teachers who are watching that leaves us with some hope? What are these people like?
The number of people that are going into this field is increasing exponentially. It is growing like crazy. Applied behavior analysis is being recognized all over the world. I leave on Friday we run a program in Spain. I'll be teaching over there for the first 2 weeks in June. My counterpart, Tom Zane, is coming over for the last 2 weeks in June. I've taught in the country of Jordan. There are ABA programs all over the United States and all over the world. And the vast majority of them are focusing on teaching people to be absolutely qualified instructors for individuals that have been diagnosed on the autism spectrum.
Well, I've said from the minute I saw that this was working with my son, I said, oh my goodness, we need an army. We need an army to go around the world and make it possible for every child in the world to have access to this kind of therapy. And you're training the army, so thank you so much for all that you're doing, because we really appreciate it.
Shannon, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
And have a wonderful time in Spain.
I hope to.
And I hope that we can catch up with you sometime after you get back.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling.
And thank you to everyone at Endicott College. We'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye now.
Bye-bye. That was Dr. Mike Dorsey. What a wonderful wealth of knowledge. If you are watching this interview and you have questions, please know that we can get a hold of Dr. Dorsey after the fact, so feel free to continue asking questions even if you're watching in rebroadcast. We're going to take a break, and actually we're not going to take a break. We're going to show you now the A word because we're a little bit late today. This is the wonderful ongoing documentary that's being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following one little boy, Jack Riley, family as he goes through early intensive behavioral intervention. And we're watching at this point. This little boy was diagnosed when he was 2. He's about to be 3 years old. He's about 7 or 8 months into his EIBI. So let's take a look and see what Jack Riley is up to this week.
You were over this. We did this like 5 months ago. I know, that's you. Hi, look.
Hi, look.
You can say hi.
Hi.
Say, I'm Jack Riley.
I'm Jack Riley. I got, really, it's showtime.
It's showtime.
Sit down, I can eat.
Look what I have. Do you want to play with your rug?
The rug.
Whoa, you want to play?
I to play.
Okay, you need to get your stickers. Do you want the rug?
What's the rug?
Okay, you need to sit here. No, you need to sit right here. Sit down. Sit right here. You need to sit here, buddy. No. Or else we have to go sit on the chair, bud. Come on. Sit up. Okay. You're gonna sit on the chair then, dude. Ready? Clap your hands. Good. See, that's one sticker. Touch your head. There it is. You have to sit on chair, There you go. Thank you. You got one sticker for that. High fives. Very good. What do you want after the one sticker?
iPhone.
iPhone? Okay. Let's see. Touch your back. Very good. See? You got it. High fives. I'll get it for you, okay? Cool. So he's been having a lot of non-compliance lately with the other girls too. So most of our session might be compliance training today. It's basically asking him to do things he already does know, so he's successful. But just to get their focus back, by asking them to do things that they already do know, it kind of shifts their focus back on something else. And then I just bring in what I originally asked was to sit in the chair. And he was able to do it. I don't know if it's just, you know, his baby sister or just, it's just been lately. Okay, my turn. Okay, we're gonna get 5 stickers again. What do you want to do?
iPhone.
More iPhone? Okay, sure. Okay, ready? Stand up. Good job. Here's 1 sticker. Clap your hands. Good job. Touch your nose. Where's your nose? Good job. Touch your ears. Nice. 1 more. Sit down. Nice. Very good. Here you go. So I'll do that just a couple times just to get him back in the groove of things. Get back. What are you doing?
Pooping.
You're pooping? Oh, okay. You going potty?
Going to party.
Are you going poo-poo?
I'll go to a party. You're poo-poo.
You have poo-poo in your diaper?
Pooping your diapers.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, are you pooping? Oh, maybe he is. Okay. Are you all done? Okay. One more minute to go poop. Yeah. Yeah, and then we're gonna get your dad, okay? Okay, we're gonna go see Daddy. Okay? And go show Daddy to say, Daddy, I pooped.
Daddy, I pooped.
Go find Daddy. Yeah, or else he's just doing it. No? Yeah. Yay! You said you pooped and you did!
You pooped, huh?
Yay!
That's really good. I'm really proud of you. Look at me. I'm really proud of you.
You're going to be a star. You're going to be a superstar. She was very fussy until right this second. That's Big Brother's girlfriend.
How are they doing together?
He mostly ignores her. Although he did have a little monologue yesterday where out of the blue he said, "Bless you, Lainey Grace." And then he said a few other things about her too.
I love you, Lainey Grace.
I love you, Lainey Grace.
Oh, that's sweet.
And he'll kiss her head and thinks that's funny because, of course, Mommy gives her big reactions to his kisses. She says, "Ooh, I like that kiss." So he likes to do it like 45 times. But most of the time, if you ask him what his sister's name is or anything about his sister, he pretends like he didn't hear you, which is fine. We're not in a hurry.
Jealousy to work out on, I think.
And we are very careful if he wants me to, whoever's got her, if he tries to get our attention or whatever. If we can, we give it to him. There's going to be plenty of times where we can't. So we're trying not to have her be the reason we have to say no. For now.
Success. It's been an eventful 1 hour since we've been here.
Exciting.
I know.
Jam-packed. This is going to be an exciting episode to edit. There's baby, there's pooping, there's tantruming, there's everything.
Only in the first hour, Suzanne.
I know.
See what the second hour will bring us.
Welcome back. We were just watching The A Word. This is this wonderful ongoing documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following one little boy as he journeys through autism with his early intervention, early intensive behavioral intervention, ABA. And I just love this show. For exactly the kinds of things that we saw today. Because all last week we were talking about compliance, right? And how important it is to have compliance, but that compliance isn't this thing that you go, oh, wow, we got it. Tie it up in a nice bow. Good. We can move on to other things, right? Because compliance is one of those things that we're going to come back and work on over and over and over again. You know why? Because when our children grow, they push the limits and we have to get compliance in check, right? It's a good thing. We need to make peace with that. It means that our child is progressing most of the time. I won't say all the time. But we get compliance and then the child grows and we got to get compliance again. But notice how different compliance is now from when we started out with this little boy. That especially around the whole poop issue, if you recall, and if you haven't watched, go back and watch early episodes, that an earlier episode, he was being asked to do something and all of a sudden compliance went out the window. And you know what's also great about this is that you get to see, and when you're not emotionally involved and you're not emotionally responsible for what's happening, you get to watch and go, well, what just happened? Something just happened that compliance went out the window for a minute, right? But when we're in the situation, we're like, you know, frenetic and frantic, you know, trying to get the compliance back. And we don't always stop and go, wait a second, something else is going on, right? But there was a moment on an earlier episode when the therapist that we get to watch the most, Jessica, was asking him to do something and compliance just went poof and gone. And he turned into the octopi arms and she was trying to get him to sit on the chair. And it was this big thing that he didn't want to. And she was staying all calm about it. And you know, eventually he did sit down in the chair, but there were lots of tears and things going on. And eventually, you know, he sat down on the chair because they, you know, it was the whole thing. He was working for Bubbles and he did the compliance and got the praise and got the bubbles. And the minute that they were not putting any demands on him, he got up from the chair and went under the dining room table to take a poop. And then Mom in particular said, oh, I feel really bad because all of that now I can see, all of that just happened because he wanted to go take a poo under the dining room table and he didn't have enough functional communication, enough functional language to say, I need a minute, I'm taking a poo. Right? So instead, he tantrumed. And you just get to see it really clearly, right? The tantrum's thrown and you go, what is this? Oh, he needed to take a poo. And the mom said in that episode, wow, somewhere down the line, he's going to be able to, when we're putting on a demand on him to say, I need a minute, I'm taking a poo. The angels sing, we're there. That, you know, I don't know what was going on with him in the beginning, and we'll talk about what that might be. But there was a moment on today's episode when he's in the hallway and the therapist is asking him to do something and he says, I'm pooping. And she says, oh, you're pooping? And you know, she says, are you done? He says, no, I need a minute. I'm pooping. How brilliant is this? And then do you see what happens? Then they go and tell Dad, you know, that he was pooping and everyone, yay! Now, why? Why are we going, yay, that he pooped in a diaper? Well, because this is a little boy who I'm just going to guess that very soon they're going to target toileting, because clearly he's ready. Right? How different is it going to be now that if they target toileting when we have a little boy who recognizes what's happening with his body and can verbalize what's happening with his body? Now there's just one little step instead of 35 that they got to do so that he recognizes, okay, I go and do this in the bathroom. And they're going to make the bathroom really reinforcing. As opposed to, and sometimes you do have to start toileting with a child who doesn't yet get that, but it's going to be infinitely easier because they waited a little bit and he's got the functional communication skills and they're already reinforcing it. Yay, you pooped. Poop is not something horrible, right? Yay, you pooped. And now they're going to show him, oh, and now when you do it in the toilet, you're going to be that much happier. Yay. They're setting him up for success. Okay, let's go back and talk about the beginning, though, with the compliance, right? We've seen Jack Riley, if you're watching, and if you haven't watched yet, they have their own YouTube channel. You need to be watching this. I promise you, it's going to make you feel better about everything, because you're going to recognize emotions that the parents have and say, oh, it's okay. I'm having this emotion, too. I'm right on schedule. I'm feeling frustrated, even though we're having progress. Oh, it's okay. There's the YouTube channel. Are you going to see, oh, my child just took 2 steps forward and then took 1 step back? Oh, that's okay too. Oh, I can see the trajectory. I know why they're teaching this, which adds to this, which adds to this. It will help you to be more patient. But in any case, you've seen, if you've watched the show before, that Jack Riley had compliance. And that is, you know, it's gone on the skids from time to time because it should and it will. And so here we see a little boy who's out of sorts today, that normally she says, come and sit down, and she pats the chair, and he's thrilled to come and sit down and do a lesson. And today, he's not, because sometimes our kids aren't. And you get to see what happens when they aren't, and she starts to go through compliance training with him. We've talked about this before on the show, that when you don't have compliance, what do you need to do is to ask them to do something either that they already want to do or something that's really easy, and shower them with the reinforcement that gets them, as she says, back in the groove. Don't we all from time to time know something that works, but we kind of forget that something works and we forget to do that thing, and then somebody reminds us, oh, when you do this, this works. And then when we do, we go, oh, why wasn't I always doing that? Same thing for our kids. We want to make it abundantly clear to them, though, when you comply, all the lights in the room come on and the party happens. And when you don't comply, it's not that it's miserable, but the lights aren't on. The party's not happening. It's much more fun with the lights on and the party happening. So we set them up for a circumstance where we get to throw the lights on and have the proverbial party, right? So she does that with him, and she does it. We do it with very simple things sometimes, like touch your nose, touch your back, touch your head, right? To get them back in the groove. And you see that he's having his emotions. He's, and eventually she says, come in the chair, but he goes to the chair. He's expressing that he's not happy, and that's okay, and we're not saying you don't need to whine about it. Let him have his emotions. You're going to change how he looks at things, and he's not going to be somebody who stifles his emotions, right? But the emotion isn't what's getting him the sticker. That's the really important part, right? What we don't want to do is say, oh, you're feeling bad and you're feeling terrible because I've asked you to do something. Come here and I'll give you a hug, and then sit on the chair, right? That would be rewarding the emotion. We're not going to reward the emotion, but we're also not going to waste time asking him not to have it. Don't you appreciate this? When was the last time that you were having a big emotion and somebody said to you, don't feel that way? Didn't you want to go, really? Really? Like, where are you coming from with that? I'm feeling what I'm feeling. You know, you don't like it, go someplace else, but I'm having my feelings right now, right? Our kids get to have their feelings too, but we don't want to reinforce them. We're just going to let them have them. We're not going to stifle them, whatever. So he sits in the chair and she says, yeah, you got the sticker, and he gets to play with the iPhone. I even love when she says, you know, what is it that you want? You got to get 3 more stickers, and what do you want? And he says, iPhone. You know, I don't mean to laugh at this little boy because he's feeling miserable, but look, he's able to say what he wants and what he needs. That's going to serve him well in his life, even when he's miserable and he's unhappy. iPhone. Now, she says, you know, that he's been this way the last couple of days, and that we don't know why, because a lot of times we don't get to know why. But when we lose compliance or we get a child who's tantruming and it's not really evident, we start to ask ourselves the same questions, right? What's changed? What's going on and what's changed? And I guarantee you there's always something changing, right? Because they're always changing, we're always changing, the weather changes, what time the sun sets changes, something is always changing. So you want to ask yourself, okay, what kinds of things have changed? Well, he has a new baby sister. Yeah. Now, that might just be part of it, but I'm sure it's part of it, right? He's been the king of the hill for quite a while, for about 3 years here now, and he's had therapists coming to the door, and it's all been the Jack Riley show. And now there is this precious bundle of joy, and he's got to make room to share the Jack Riley show. And that's got to be a transition for anybody, right? You know, it was a transition for us when a baby came in to our lives, right? So this is his first experience of that. And it goes to his core things that are reinforcing to him. Mom and dad and even the therapist and even the filmmaker is oohing on over the baby. So there is going to be an adjustment. Now, do we need to panic about that? No. We go to our tool belt. What do we have for compliance? Oh, okay. We just go back to asking him to do something he wants to do, or asking him to do something that we know is easy for him and giving him a reinforcer for it. And you heard the therapist say, I'm going to do this 2 or 3 times to get him back in the groove before we take on a lesson that's going to be a little bit harder. But she can get him back in the groove. And notice that he is expressing himself, saying, I need a poop. I need a minute. I love that. Talk about a mom's dreams, you know, go back and watch that episode where she says, you know, and she's tearful and she says, I feel bad for him that he didn't have the ability to tell us, so he tantrumed. But, you know, maybe someday my child is going to get to the point where he can say, I need a minute to poo. Mom's dream, check mark. And there are a lot more of mom's dreams that are in the pipeline because this child is learning how to communicate his wants and his needs, and he's building his skills. Does that mean he's never going to tantrum? Well, clearly not. Clearly not. But the severity of the tantrum is not as long, and we see that he is learning how to help get himself out of it, right? Which is immeasurably beautiful. All right, we have to take a very short break. We are going to come back and we have one more topic to talk about, and then at 10:30 we are going to be joined by our fabulous mom blogger. So stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age, which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provide you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community, where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. We spoke with Dr. Mike Dorsey during the last hour, and coming up in just a few minutes, we have mom blogger, I'm going to say it's Ragga, and I'm not even going to try to say her last name, but her blog is Family and Autism, the Roller Coaster Journey of Raising Autistic Children. Excuse me. We're going to be joined by her in just a minute. I have a couple of quick reminders for you. First of all, we had some guests on the show a couple of weeks ago from the film Not Forgotten. And this is the untold story of autism in Ukraine. They are in a contest. We're in the last few days. We're in the last week here of the contest. And Emily has, thank you, Emily, put up the website that you can go to. You go to their website, take a look at what they're doing. They've already shot the film, so they're not looking for funding to shoot the whole film. The film is shot. They're just looking for some additional funding in order to be able to edit the film. And if they get extra funding, then they're going to start translating some books into appropriate languages for the professionals and families that are dealing with autism in Ukraine. And you can help them to do that by voting for them. And it doesn't cost anything to vote. You can go to that site. You'll see that there is a button that you can click on to vote for them. You'll have to log on to Facebook because it's through Facebook. And there are many other organizations and charities and projects that are also competing, but it's really important for them to be first through sixth. If they're first through sixth, they're going to have enough money to finish the film. If they come in first, they're going to be able to have the money to finish the film and to translate some of those important books about autism, because that's how dire it is there right now, that they don't even have information for the professionals. As recent as 10 years ago, it was unlawful unlawful to diagnose a child with autism in Ukraine. So take a minute. You know, when you help someone else, I honestly believe that it helps you on this journey to take a breath. It is like a little mini vacation. Don't believe me? Try it and see if you don't feel better. And I do believe in karma. I believe it comes back to you ×2, and it costs you nothing except a very little bit of time. You can vote once a day until the end of the month. So please take the time to register and vote for Not Forgotten, the film. It is the untold story of autism in Ukraine. Also want to remind you that it's not too late. You can participate in the Kickstarter for the book Legends of the Boo Monster. This is written by Sean Colton. We had him on the show a week and a half ago, I guess now. He's an awesome autism dad who, his child is largely nonverbal, and he had a friend who did a drawing of the whole family and kind of made them into fantasy characters, and it spun off into this thing amongst their family that they would tell stories, and he now is putting together a book of these stories, Legends of the Boo Monster. It is unbelievably clever. You don't have to believe me. Go to Kickstarter.com, put in Legends of the Boo Monster, or you can put in Sean Colton, SHAWNCOLTON, and check out. They were raising $5,000. They've already met that goal. But I want to encourage you to do something for me. Go and take a look at the book, because I think it's an amazing thing. And if you still want to give $1, it just makes the book that much better. And if you want to give $25, which I want to encourage you to do, is what I did. If you do that, then at the end of the book, there's, my understanding, there's this big event that happens at the end of the book. There's an opportunity for there to be more characters. You can have a character based on your child and have them have a line of dialogue in the book for $25. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the deal of the century. Not only are you helping somebody to help their family with autism, and you're helping them to achieve this creative thing that will be with us for the rest, and the book is going to happen now. It's an assurity because they have met their goal, but you will also have something to put into your child's hands that is meaningful to them on multi-levels, and there's a piece of them in the book for $25. And my understanding is that the book is set to come out in December. So what a wonderful holiday gift to give your child and to give the universe. So again, that's Kickstarter, and you don't have to. They've met their goal, but I really think what a wonderful thing. And if it's not something that's in your budget, tell aunts, uncles, and grandparents and say, hey, here's something that you can do for my child for a holiday gift that would be meaningful not only to my child, but to the entire community. So I encourage you to do that. And Sean is actually going to be my guest this afternoon on my radio show. So if that interests you, it promises to be a really exciting interview. All right, we have to take a short break, but when we come back, we are going to be joined by mom blogger. Her blog is Family and Autism, the roller coaster journey of raising autistic children. You can find it by going to www.familyandautism.com. She's going to tell us how to pronounce her name, because heaven knows I'm going to need some help. But I'm really excited to talk to her about her blog and what she's writing about. So stick with us, back in just a few minutes.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz, and once you pass that quiz you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And we have a special treat for you here on this Monday morning, live via Skype. We have an autism mom blogger. Her blog is Family and Autism, subtitled The Roller Coaster Journey of Raising Autistic Children. During the break, we got her on Skype and I asked her how to say her name, and it was determined that I was going to mess it up. But I'm going to take a stab at her nickname, which is Ragga. And I'm sure I got that wrong. Ragga, are you with us?
Yes,
and you are. I can see you. There you are. So tell me, how do I actually say your name? What is your name?
My full name?
Whatever you'd like to tell us.
Well, most people call me by my nickname, and I say it in Icelandic, I would say it Ragga.
Okay. So I'm not even close. And but in any case, thank you for being with us. You are coming to us live from Denmark. What time is it there?
It's 7:30 p.m.
Okay. So it's 10:30 our time, 7:30 at night your time, and you were saying that your husband is just getting the boys off to bed right now. Is that right?
Yes.
And you have 2 children. Tell us about your sons.
Yes, I have 2 sons. The older one, he turned 5 in February, and he's a little cutie. And then I have another boy who is turning 3 very soon, we got them both diagnosed with autism within the past year, so it's all pretty new to us still.
Well, I have to say, you're doing really well for somebody who's new to this journey. You have a wonderful blog that we want to tell people about. They can go to it at www.familyandautism.com, and you spell out the and. And as I said, the subtitle is The Roller Coaster Journey of Raising Autistic Children. This is a lovely blog. How long ago did you start it?
Well, I started it in February, actually. I was, it was actually my husband's idea. It was kind of funny. We got the news about our older son in late September. And understandably, we were kind of crushed. It came as a complete surprise. We'd never even, it had never occurred to us even that this was a possibility, and even when in the diagnosis process they were saying that this is something that they wanted to look into, we were like, sure, whatever. We're sure it's not that. So it came as a huge shock, and I think it was in December that my husband first mentioned it to me that I should do it, that I should actually go and make a blog and just blog about our experience. And at first I was actually a bit skeptical. I wasn't sure if I was like willing, and just, I don't know, I wasn't really sure that I wanted to open up in that way and just let everyone in on what was happening with us. And it's kind of personal and all that, so you probably all know that. But as I thought more about it, and he was always encouraging me to do it, eventually I thought, what the heck, why not? And
you're a beautiful writer, and one of the blogs that really caught my interest, for Autism Awareness Day, you wrote the 10 myths about autism, the top 10 myths, and that's something that we talk about on the show all the time, because there's so many myths out there that we're all trying to dispel on a daily basis that make a difference of how the world interacts with our kids.
Yeah.
And I thought your 10 myths were absolutely brilliant, and you write a little bit about them. What's your favorite blog that you've written to date?
Well, there are a few, because some of the posts or blogs that I make, they're kind of basic, more like informative. But then there are others where I'm kind of, digging deep into the feelings that come with all this roller coaster, let's say that. So, for me, actually, one of the first ones, it's the post, I think it's called The Verdict, Your Son is Autistic.
Yeah.
One was really emotional for me. I was actually crying when I was writing it. And so, I guess I would have to say that one.
And I have to say, I think that's one of the reasons why your blog is very successful. A lot of people are reading it right now because it is a wonderful mix of information and this really honest sharing about what this journey is like, which is a wonderful thing for all of us to be able to share with you and relate with you to what it's like.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's an absolutely beautiful blog. So tell me a little bit about when you said that you went to the doctor with your son. What kinds of things were you seeing that got you to the doctor's office, but that you still weren't thinking you were in the neighborhood of autism?
Yeah, well, to begin with, it was actually not our initiative. It was, we're Icelandic, and which is a tiny country in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We are only like 300,000 people that live there. So we decided to go abroad to do our graduate studies. And so we moved to Denmark, and as a second language, our older son was having problems adjusting to that, and he was not catching the language as fast as normally would be expected. So the kindergarten actually started mentioning things that maybe we should talk to a language therapist or like a speech therapist. And so it started there, and then she was seeing something when we met her a few times she was seeing some signs that she wanted a psychologist to take a look at, and so it kind of like automatically went there. And we actually always knew that there was something, but we maybe thought it would be like ADD or something in that area. We never, I mean, he was born prematurely. We kind of always blamed everything on that. And also because he has low muscle tone, which is actually, now that I know that he has autism, is actually quite common for autistic kids, but it's actually also quite common for children who are born prematurely. So we kind of always blamed just everything that we heard on that. I mean, if he has low muscle tone, it's also more difficult for him to use his muscles in his mouth and cheeks. So yeah, it started there. And then when they suggested that we would have him looked at more thoroughly, we were like, sure, why not? We've always been very open to getting everything checked. And so we were just, whatever, I mean, great, perfect. Then we know, and then we can exclude things, and then we know what it is, and we can work with that. Yeah, so that's how it happened.
Well, so brave. I mean, I can't even imagine, with all the things that you have going on, that you're a graduate student, you're a mom of 2 kids, and 2 kids fairly recently diagnosed with autism, and you've got time to write a blog. You must have a lot of energy.
Oh my, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of people who do lots of things and no one pays attention to it. I mean, I guess I just don't clean the house as much or something.
Well, that's okay. That's all right, because I'm not cleaning my house either. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and talk more with Ragga. Am I even close?
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to talk about what autism is like in her area of the world. So stick with us. We're going to be back in just a minute.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something, and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And listen, I have to say, you know, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are in the middle of a conversation with a wonderful mom blogger whose name is harder for me to say than I want to try. But I'm going to have her say it. But her blog is Families and Autism. And it is a wonderful blog. It's a fairly new blog that she's only been doing in this past year. 2 children on the spectrum. She is a graduate student. She's living in a foreign country, and English is not her first language. So I was just saying to her during the break, you're doing so much better than I would be doing. But tell us how to pronounce your name again.
Yeah, my nickname is pronounced Ragga.
Okay. And now everybody understands why I'm not even trying to say it, because I'm chicken. In any case, so we talked a little bit about how you ended up getting your first child to the doctors to be diagnosed. And then at that point, when you got the diagnosis of autism, which was devastating, at what point did you decide to have your younger son looked at?
Yeah, actually, I mean, sure, like I said earlier, it was really, really shocking to get the news for our older son, because it was so far away from what we'd ever dreamed was the case. So we got the news, and actually it was a bit rough the way we were delivered the news. And so afterwards we kind of like went home, and I mean, we were very much in denial, and we weren't really like acknowledging the signs that were there, and now I can see them, and now I can understand why he got the diagnosis. But it was really, really difficult. So we went home, and actually for the next few days, the only thing that we were doing was just going online, trying to Google everything on autism. We actually knew not that much. I mean, I think I had a pretty wrong image of it, and that's also why I decided to do the blog that you talked about earlier, the one with the myths, because I actually had a lot of wrong assumptions about autism. And so we went online, and we were pretty much trying to find something to disprove that our son was autistic. And so we were really much reading, and just like all our focus went into that. And yes, kind of separately, both of us started to like thinking, okay, this actually doesn't really fit to our older boy, but it actually fits to our younger son. And so the more we read, the more afraid we became that this might not only be true for our older boy, but also our younger son. And then I think it was like in like 5 days after my husband approached me, he was like, you know, I'm actually starting to think that our younger son might have it too. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm thinking the same. And that was pretty hard. And I mean, yes, we were kind of convinced pretty soon afterwards. I mean, the older one has the signs, but he's also very open, outgoing, and he speaks, although he's not developing as fast as maybe typically developing kids. He still does speak and can express himself and all that, and he's very open, and he loves to be around people. So he has a lot of qualities that are maybe not necessarily typical for autistic kids. But the younger one, he's nonverbal, and yeah, there's a lot more like typical signs, so to say. Shocked that, and we just actually decided to just go and press it to press him to be diagnosed as soon as possible.
Which is great that you're getting that early diagnosis. And so tell me a little bit about, because you're from Iceland, but you are in Denmark, and Denmark is where you got the diagnosis.
Yeah.
So what is autism like in Denmark?
Well, Denmark has a reputation of being one of the best countries to live in terms of the social system. So we were, like, first after we got the diagnosis, we were pretty much like saying, wow, what a lucky thing that we actually live here. And I actually think that they're much faster in the diagnosis process here in Denmark than they are in Iceland. However, we actually became a little surprised with a few things here. And I mean, I guess there's always something to complain about everywhere.
I'm sure. But,
yeah.
But you know, as a parent, you're entitled. So are you getting help?
We are now. Okay. But the thing is that in the beginning, we had to actually wait for almost, just over half a year for our older boy to get into a special institution. And until then, he only had 7 hours of support per week. So that was not that much. And we were, of course, trying our best at home, but we didn't really get any support so we were just kind of like doing things that we thought would be good for him. And so when he finally got into a special institution, and they always have like these special institutions here, it's actually like a normal kindergarten, and then there's a little department where there are 6 kids and 4 employees. So it's not one-on-one, but it's still like
high
not,
ratio.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been such a different situation. But here everything is based on teach. Do you say it that way?
Teach.
Teach. The TEACH.
Yes.
And as we started to read more about it, we actually wanted to get our boys into ABA. And that is possible in Iceland, and it's not possible in Denmark.
Interesting.
Yes, and so actually it was just 1 month ago that our younger son also got into the same institution that our older son is in. So that's a huge improvement. Now both of them are in a special institution. It's so much better than it was, but it's still not quite where we want it to be. So we decided that we will be moving back to Iceland in the fall when we've finished our graduate studies.
Well, I wish you guys nothing but the best. I thank you so much for being with us, and we love your blog. Want to remind everybody how they can get to it, www.familiesandautism. If I got that right, I got to bring it back up.
Family and
Autism. I'm saying the IES, but it's not. Familieandautism.com. And the subtitle is The Roller Coaster Journey of Raising Autistic Children. I also love you're very honest. You write about marriage and what it's like to, to be going through this, but it sounds like you guys have a lot of really good things going on for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he's pretty amazing.
Well, you're pretty amazing too. I just want some of your energy, but I think it's all I think it might be partially about being young, and there's nothing I can do about that anymore. So, but we applaud you, and we hope that more and more people are going to go and read your blog, familieandautism.com. And maybe once you guys get settled back at home in Iceland, we can tune back in with you and see how things are going.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I would love that.
Thank you so much, and hopefully you'll have time before they go to sleep to go in and snuggle with the boys and read to them, because I know it's nighttime where you are.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm very honored.
Well, we're honored to have you, and keep up the good work. We'll be following your blog.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And so wonderful mom blogger whose name I'm not even going to try to say, Ragga. I don't know. I'm not good. But familieandautism.com. Really want to encourage you to go and look. Some of the blogs are just absolutely amazing and breathtaking, and I especially love the one about the autism myths. So really exciting. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we haven't had a chance to do the question of the day, so we'll be doing that viewer response to our question of the day, which is, what is the biggest hurdle, the biggest stumbling block that's preventing you from getting the proper amount of ABA for your child? Because let's talk about it. Let's fix it. Let's do some work together. Hold hands on it. All right, stick with us.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz, and once you pass that quiz you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We've got a lot going on here this morning, really having a good time. First, we had Dr. Mike Dorsey in the house with us. I can't be cool. I'm sorry. I don't even know why I tried. And then we just had an awesome autism mommy blogger, her blog, familyandautism.com. Wonderful. A young mom going to graduate school in a foreign country, has both of her children diagnosed with autism and still has time to write a blog. I'm very impressed. Very impressed. Check out her blog. It's really lovely. And again, familyandautism.com. I promised you that we were going to do our viewer mail for question of the day, and then we have some questions that have come in this morning and last night that we need to address. So our question of the day is, what is the biggest stumbling block that is preventing you from getting the proper amount of ABA therapy for your child? Now, I know, and I said this morning, for a lot of people it's like, well, duh, right? Except I really don't think it is a duh, and even if it was a duh, I think that everybody who gives ABA therapy and all the legislators and all these other people need to know what the duh is, right? Some of the things that you guys wrote in and said, funding. Yeah, that is a huge part of this, right? And we are going to have a funding tip, a little think outside the box funding tip a little bit later on in this hour, because it's a part of this journey. It's undeniable, and you have to know. But one of the things that I want to remind you guys is that it's always easier to do something and follow in somebody else's footsteps and kind of change it up a little bit, but not reinvent the wheel. And that's something that I have friends who get things in the universe much better than I do, and they're always telling me, don't reinvent the wheel. Look and see, how is somebody else getting it done? And when autism came to live at our house, let me just tell you that there was so much fear in my being. First of all, there was fear that I wasn't going to find anything that was going to be effective. That was a huge fear that I had. But I'll tell you, quite honestly, and I don't share this information with everybody, but the other fear that I had was that I was going to find that there was something that was effective and I wasn't going to be able to afford it. Oof, the emotion even now of thinking about that, almost to the point where I didn't want to look, because if I found something that would work and I couldn't afford it, I didn't know how I was going to live with that. But you know what? People told me, don't be afraid of that. Other people are getting this done and they have as little or less money than you have. Don't be afraid. Suck it up, be a good mom, and find out what it is first. Well, you know what? I did find out that there was something that was effective, and I found out that it was really stinking expensive. Sorry, that's just the truth of it. It's stinking expensive. And, but I also found out that there were other families who had as little and less money than my husband and I had, who were finding ways to get it funded. It was overwhelming. But we leapt in with both feet and said, there is not an option for failure. I can't live with that. I can't sleep at night and think that we didn't do this because of money. So there's got to be a way. And let me just tell you that you are not alone in this. There are lots of people who sat and stared down this same thing that I stared down, and we got our funding. Yes, I lived in California at a time when there was funding and we still had to fight for it, and it was still financially devastating. But I'm telling you that it's actually, there are some stumbling blocks now, but it's actually easier now. I know that may seem hard to believe with the economy the way that it is, but there are more options now for more people. That may not be true for everyone, but we can, you know, case by case, let's start to look at it and figure out not if we're going to get it funded for you, how we're going to get it funded for you. Let's just get in that mindset, and I'm here to work on it with you, and you can call me up and yell at me and go, you know, all right, this one didn't work, and then we'll move on to the next one. But get in that mindset. I love, you remember the Life's Little Instruction booklet that you know, like 20 years ago it came out, and it was this book of things that a dad wrote for his son to help him to be able to sort life out. My favorite one, I gotta get this like on a thing on a wall, but when you're going, this was the phrase, when you're going after Moby Dick, pack the tartar sauce. Pack the tartar sauce. And that's always been a big thing to me. So whenever we've had to do something big or something wasn't going well, I would always get a jar of tartar sauce and put it there and go, failure is not an option. We are going to do this. We are so sure that we got the tartar sauce on board because we're getting Moby Dick. I got to tell you, that's what it takes. Making that decision and saying, I don't care, we're going to figure it out. And then, you know, call me, write me, whatever. Let's tell me where you are, what the issue is, and if it's funding, we're going to take it on. With, you know, both horns, we're taking it on. Right? So another person who wrote it and said, funding and availability. Yeah, availability is another part of this puzzle, but there's more and more people and there's more and more places. So I really want to encourage you, if it's availability, to get your local support group cooking, whether it's online or whatever, that you're talking to other families. If you can get, here's my promise to you, that if you can get a group of families together. And we had Tiffany O'Day here with us in the studio, who was saying that all of the card offices that have sprung up over the last 20 years in different places around the world happened in the same way, that a group of parents got together, and that usually it started out between 5 to 10 parents who said, we want this. And that card came, talked to them, and then they got a few more parents, and that's how those offices started. So that's something that's really, you know, those families are there, and you know that they want access to help as well. Now, does it have to be CARD? No, but I'm telling you that CARD will come if you've got enough families that are together. It's time to lean into your support group and say, who's with me on this? Another person who says availability, cost. So there, and a lot of dittos here, availability and cost. There we go. Oh, another person who says the regional center taking months to do anything. I guess they don't realize early intervention is crucial. You know what? And I'm assuming that when you're saying regional center, you mean here in California. And I was a beneficiary of the regional center system when the regional center still had money. And I can't attest to how much money they have right now, but I know it is nowhere near what they had when my son started. And it took months. And I watched so many other families come behind me, and it took months for them as well. I would love to tell you that it's gotten better. I don't think that's the case. I think it is as bad as it was. We're talking about a place that has a certain number of employees and many more people calling than can be dealt with by the number of people that are there. Now, one of the things that I always share with you guys is we're all in this together, right? But it's your job to advocate for your child. And sometimes that means, I'm going to shudder to say this, but you got to be the squeaky wheel. And yes, you know you're being a squeaky wheel against other parents who have children with autism. But you know what? You cannot worry about them in that moment. There will be plenty of time for you to help everybody else down the road. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that. But in the moment, in this moment, when you don't have things in place for your child and your child still doesn't have the services that they need, it is not your job to take care of everybody else. It is your job to advocate for your child. And you call, they have an officer of the day, you call every single day. You are as nice as you can be. You are not angry and yelling at anybody, but you call every single day. And I guarantee you, they listen to that because they want, like any other thing, they're human beings, and it's like, okay, I've got 35 people I got to call. Who am I going to call first? That person who has called every single day because I need for him or her to stop. I'm sorry. You know, I'm sure that the regional center will not love me giving that advice, but you've got to advocate. And some of these, you know, the machinations of it move slow, slow. When I started at the regional center, we called for the first time on November 1st and said, I got the phone number from somebody. I didn't even know the regional center existed. I called and said, my child needs something. Okay, we're going to schedule an intake. They scheduled the intake, and it was like the 17th of November. And I was like, really, we got to wait that long? And they were saying the only reason why you got that date was because there was a cancellation. So we did it like on the 17th of November, and then I called the next week, and they said, oh, well, the person who deals with that is out on vacation because it's Thanksgiving. And I said, okay. And I sat there and twiddled my thumbs and waited until the Monday after Thanksgiving, and I started calling on that day. And they said, oh, okay, well, this person's back, and she just moved it to this person's desk. Okay, so I called that person's desk. Oh, well, they're out for the holidays. Hanukkah was early that year, and in terms of December, and so they're out for those holidays. I was like, oh, okay. So I wait and wait and wait, and Hanukkah's over, and I call, and that person does, you know, their little stamp on it and moves it to the next person's desk who is out celebrating Christmas. Are you kidding me? Are you seriously kidding me? But that is when I started calling every day. And I kept being told, oh, well, you know, by June 15th, or excuse me, by January 15th, by January 15th, by January 15th. And when I called on January 15th, and they're like, oh, you know, we only fund on the 1st and the 15th, and you didn't make it, so now it's going to be February 1st. And that is when I called and said, I think I'll just come down and sit with my child because we have no place to be, nothing to do. So we're just going to come and sit at the office. And I understand that you guys have toys and stuff there. We'll just hang out. And our funding kicked in. I don't know, you know? I was very nice about it. I wasn't confrontational, but you got to stay on it. And they will find the way for the papers to go through. Get that officer of the day, because you can't always get a hold of your particular caseworker. Know how to get a hold of the officer of the day. Leave them a nice message every day. Not disagreeable, but constant. Another person who says, to the last person who says, it takes so long. I agree, it takes so long. I've been fighting for my son since he was 2. He would line up everything and did not talk. I had a psychologist tell me I was the problem, that I spoiled my son, that he needed more discipline. So for 2 years, I tried every form of discipline, but it didn't help. Finally, after 3.5 years, he has finally been accepted into the regional center, but it has been the hardest thing. And you know what? Bless your heart. Bless your heart, and thank you for sharing, because this is a moment where we all get to go, right? For all of us, there has been a moment where somebody has said, no, it's you. No, you're overreacting. No, your child doesn't need this. No, your child doesn't need this much. So we have all had that moment, have we not? And for all of us, it's like, ugh, right? In the gut or in the heart, ugh, because we know what we know. And I have to share this because I have been there too, and let people tell me something that I went, oh, okay, it must just be me then. But for anyone who's listening, it's not just you. Your parent's instinct is stronger than anything on this planet. You know this child better than anyone does. If you were in denial before and you are not in denial now, and you see that your child needs something more, then do not trust that person who just told you that everything is okay, that your child will grow out of this, that it's you, that you haven't disciplined. You know, hear that and go, okay, one more stumbling block that I just went over because I'm not listening to you. You are not wasting my child's time. I've heard this happen to so many other parents, and I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to listen to myself. And we all have had that moment at some point, right? It's still hard for me. There are times when somebody will say something and and then I go, wait a second. I've done this before. I have been there, done this dance before. I'm going to listen to my gut first. And then I'm going to filter in what these other people say and filter in what I know about them. You know, there are some people that earn our trust, but where our children are concerned, our instincts are paramount. So bless you. We have all forgotten that at least one moment, and thank you for sharing and reminding us that we need to always remember our instincts. Another person who says it is all of these things. Another person who says insurance not covering it. Are you 100% sure? Because we're just a couple of days away in the state of California for insurance covering, which is going to change that regional center thing. For those of you who are in the regional center, I got to tell you, it's all about to go like this. It already is. But your insurance is going to be first line of defense before regional center. And nobody yet knows how it's all going to fall into place. But for those of you around the country in the United States, there are 30 states that have insurance reform that's been passed and is either taken effect or is about to take effect. For the other states, it would seem that you cannot get insurance coverage, right? Except that there is at least one, and I think it's 2 companies now that have already settled. So even if they don't have the insurance reform at the state level, the insurance companies, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Anthem has already settled, and if you have that insurance, you are able to be funded by insurance. So take a look. Check out autismvotes.org and have your HR director call and make absolutely sure that you do not have funding, and then even go a step past that. There's Autism Votes. If there is somebody who is a quality ABA provider that you're already aware of in your area, call them. Call them, because I know here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, when somebody has a question, they can call and go through the contracts department, and contracts department will figure it out whether you're eligible or not. So call the ABA provider. They will help you to sort it out in most cases. I want to go to one of the other sites to see other answers that you guys have typed into our Facebook. Okay, money, yeah. We're going to talk about money in just a little while. Another person who says funds, regional center not cooperating, not having the proper insurance. I can go on. But you know what? All of these things add up and it feels like Mount Vesuvius on your left shoulder, right? But take it one thing at a time. I always advocate when it's money and funding sources being difficult, figure out who's your best chance to get started with. It may not be the full funding, but who's your best option right now? And nobody knows that better than you. And then apply the pressure there. Put your time and your energy there. If you think your best bet is insurance, put your time and energy there. If you think your best bet is some sort of state funding like a regional center, put your time and energy there. If it's not, then go for the grants. We'll talk more about all of that in just a second. I hate this. My husband's insurance is self-funded, so we don't qualify for the autism insurance coverage. You know, and that stinks on a level that I just can't even begin. But you know what? That's my circumstance too, because I'm on my husband's insurance, and that is his insurance as well. But you know what? With all these people that are now going to get funded through insurance, it moves you closer to the top of the line for things like grants and other things. So it's not the end of the line. And I hope and pray that federal mandate is coming. It's an election year. We've seen movement on some other things. It's time to put some pressure. We need that federal mandate so that it's not this self-funded thing or this state or that state. Just doesn't make any sense. A person saying money. Another person saying living in Nevada. You know what? I want to know where in Nevada, because Nevada's got a bunch of interesting things that's happening there where they're actually going to be funding people through the state. So living in Nevada might be different depending on where in Nevada you live. So if you're watching, write and let us know where in Nevada. There's some really exciting things happening in Nevada. No ABA providers in our area, so we do it ourselves. You go. When nobody else is there, you do it. But again, connect with that local support group. If you get 10 families, you're going to be able to get an ABA provider, and I encourage you to ask CARD to come. And another person who says money. All right, we're hearing overwhelmingly money, and we are going to be talking about funding during the next half hour. I'm just checking one more place here to see if we have... and we don't. Okay, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're scheduled to talk about the NET tip of the week, but you know what? We're going to bump funding up since this is what we've been talking about, and we're going to talk about our funding tip for the week. It's a little bit thinking outside the box, but we can do this. Stick with us. Hi, welcome. I'm here with Sue Cho, and Sue, tell us what you do.
I'm a senior clinical supervisor, and so I provide supervision to children in some of our clinics, and I also am a trainer for CARD, and so I provide training for all the supervisors that are either learning to be a supervisor or are current supervisors, and I also provide workshop services to children all over the U.S., Caribbean, Europe, South Africa, and Asia.
Very cool. And you're here today to talk with us about teaching prepositions.
Yes.
Help us to know how we can teach this.
Okay. So when you're teaching prepositions, there are a variety of ways that you can teach it. When you're teaching your first several targets, you want to make sure whatever you teach has a distinct front and a distinct back. Probably go with simpler and then more complex when you're teaching your beginning targets. One way you can do it is always have the same item to use as your reference point. You can also do it where you're constantly changing your reference point. So maybe within a sitting I decide now I'm going to use a truck, or I'm going to use a box, or I'm going to use a chair. But that also depends on how flexible the child you're teaching is with learning with multiple items. This lesson is actually a little more on the abstract side. So if you find that your child's having difficulty with lessons maybe such as attributes, that you may want to start off where you use multiple objects as your reference point. So I use a helmet, I use a chair, I use a car, but I never turn the position of the item.
Right.
And so once they learn if the item is in the same position where the object goes, then you can start turning your item or putting the child in a different position in relationship to the item.
So you start with receptive, though, where you're asking them to do it. They're not having to say anything, they just have to demonstrate their knowledge of it. Then how do you teach the expressive? How and when?
So what we do is then we'd probably work on manding so that the child can request for the position. Let's say the child wants a particular color, but we're not working on colors. We're actually trying to work on prepositions. So I have a yellow block on the top. I have 2 white cars, but maybe there's a slight distinction, and they want the one that's in front of the helmet. So then they would have to say in front. So then they get the one that's in front.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Or when you're asking about tacting, at first I start off and I say, where is the block? And the child says, on top. I have some children that actually have a really hard time learning it receptively. I try to make them motivated to ask for a position then.
And how do you motivate them to ask for the position?
You want to put things there that you know that they like.
It seems like one of the keys to this is having really preferred items to do the exercises with.
Definitely, definitely. Because they're more likely to pay attention too then.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we asked you the question today, what's your biggest stumbling block to getting the right amount of ABA therapy for your child? And let's start with, what is the right amount? Depending on your child's age and their abilities, but when we look at early intervention, early intensive behavioral intervention, and when we look at the studies that show how effective ABA is, it appears that the prescription is between 25 and 40 hours, especially for younger children. Now, if your child is in 5th grade and, they're going to school for a certain number of hours, that number we're going to adjust, right? And if their skill level is quite high and they don't need as much ABA, then we're going to adjust the level, the amount. But if we do this in the most optimal circumstances where we get the child a diagnosis and we start before school with that early intensive behavioral intervention, we really got to be in the neighborhood of 25 to 40 hours a week. I know it makes everybody shudder. It's a huge time commitment. It's a huge financial commitment. And how do we make this happen? Because nobody can afford it. Let's just start there. If you're thinking that you've done something wrong in your life, that you could not afford this, I want you to release that to the universe, because it isn't so. I loved that last year Holly Robinson Peete did a blog about the 8 things that she wishes that everybody would know about autism, and the first one was that no one can afford it. No one. So you are released from the obligation of the expectation that you were supposed to have done something in life that prepared you financially for this. Sorry, no one can afford it. You know what? Just like no one can afford catastrophic illnesses that happen in their family. That is what, my friends, insurance is supposed to be for. Well, unfortunately, for a lot of years, the insurance companies got away with saying that they weren't going to fund autism treatment because, wait for it, there was nothing that was effective that showed that it could make a difference. And finally, enough people got together and said, you can't hide behind that anymore, guys, because we know that that's not true. Take a look at all of these studies that have been done that show how effective ABA is. And for anybody who was feeling angry about the fact that money was spent on research for those kinds of things, let me just tell you, the day has arrived when we all get to benefit. Okay, maybe not all of us, but a lot of people are going to get to benefit from that, and soon, I tell you, everybody will be able to. It is a matter of time and energy and devotion on our parts to make sure that this is available to all of our kids, right? In the meantime, though, you have a child right now that needs this right now. So what are you going to do? You got to get this journey funded. You're going to look at insurance. You're going to look at state sources like regional centers if they give money. You're going to look into grants. By the way, Act Today is about to start a grant phase starting up on July 1st. Go to their site, www.act-today.org, and start getting your paperwork together to request something that you need. But what happens to fill in all the little gaps for all of the things that you need to do? Let's say that you don't have the insurance, or part of the thing that people are starting to deal with right now is, okay, great, they have the insurance. Insurance has said wonderful, but some of you have a $5,000 deductible. You might be eligible for $110,000 worth of treatment over the next year, but you've got to pay $5,000 out of pocket before that $110,000 will kick in. Well, that's devastating in this economy to most people. So how are you going to make that happen? Again, there's grants to fill in that gap. But for some of you, that's not going to be possible, or it's not going to do the whole amount, or it's not going to be quick enough. So what do you do then? And then it comes down to good old-fashioned, think out of the box fundraising. You know, if you've been on this journey and you've hooked yourself up with a local support group and with a global support group, then you see that this is not some new thing that I just invented while on my coffee break. Families have been doing this for a while. Having a fundraiser, doing something that matches what you have in your arsenal to work with, so in some way you can raise money. We had two different fundraisers when my son was starting this. We had one that we did ourselves that we, because of our backgrounds, because I used to do stand-up and I used to teach acting, so I know a great many very talented people. My husband is still an actor, a voice actor, and he knows a great many talented people, and we live just outside of Hollywood, have access to all these wonderful people, and we said to people, all right, we're going to do a little variety show and people can come. We found a venue that would work with us, and so it didn't cost us anything to put it on. We asked friends to volunteer to be in the show so that people came to it. We also asked if somebody couldn't come to the show, if there was something they wanted to donate for a silent auction, and we were able to raise some money in that way. And then a couple of years later, we had the great fortune when, I always say, Oprah is my fairy godmother. Whenever I have needed something in my personal life, Oprah is on the television talking about it 5 seconds later, or doing something that gives me the idea of whatever. And when we were in our very darkest moments and thinking that we were literally going to become homeless, I had my ABA funded, but we didn't have any food to put on the table, and we were about to lose the roof over our heads. Some friends were watching Oprah's The Big Give, a show that was all about finding ways that you can raise money for other people. And they had been through, it's one of my, I'm going to get emotional, one of my very best friends who, right after our son was diagnosed with autism, she was diagnosed with a form of cancer. And we, supported as much as we could while she was going through the cancer and tried to be helpful and useful and supportive. And I know she felt terrible because she felt like she wasn't there for us as we were going through the autism. Well, hello. I would always say to her, I think you win. You're going through chemo, so my son's having therapy. I can come to your house and my son can still have therapy. You're having chemo. You can't come, But once she was, when she lost her diagnosis, and thankfully, and knock on 68 kinds of wood, has been cancer-free since then, she saw The Big Give and said, I want to do something. And she and her husband, unbeknownst to us, we didn't even know, they did a big give for us and raised a large sum of money and presented it to us and said, hey, we know this has been really rough. Here's money to keep doing the kinds of things that you're doing that are clearly making a difference with your child. Now, you know, how lucky am I? But you can talk to your friends and say, oh, you know, I was watching this thing and this woman was talking about how her friends got together and raised money, and what a fabulous thing. I can't even imagine what that would be like. Hint, hint, right? Or you can take charge and have some sort of fundraiser yourself. I have watched families over the year, depending on what they're into. There was a family who was into hockey, and they spent a great deal of time at their local ice skating rink, and then their youngest child was diagnosed with autism, and they went to the hockey rink and said, hey, would you be willing to let us host a fundraiser here? It was great publicity, by the way, for the hockey rink, so nobody's out anything, right? And several local businesses that knew this family sponsored it as well. The hockey rink got a bunch of new customers as a result of it, and the family was able to raise enough money to do the things that they needed to do that year. You know, what do you have in your arsenal? Who do you know? I know another family that was able to, and I don't know exactly because I know that there are laws around this, so I don't know how they were able to do this, but they were able to raffle off a car. I don't think you can do that in every state, and I think you have to get a permit, and I think it's pretty involved, but they were able to raffle off a car that was given to them. Pretty impressive, right? There are lots of things you can do. I have also heard of a woman who put together these pin kits that it comes with a pin back, and it comes with a puzzle piece, and it's got a couple of other things, and you sell the pins, the pin kits, and I think it costs some ridiculous, like 10 cents for the kit, and it comes in a little plastic baggie, but you can sell it for $5 and go to your child's school and to everyone and say, hey, you know, we're selling these pins, it's $5. There are ways that you can fund this journey. You have to let go of the expectation that you can do it by yourself. You have to let go of the judgment of yourself that you've done something wrong if you're asking for help, because you can't be in that situation where you feel wrong about asking for the help. I gotta tell you that in both instances, you know, when we had the event that we put on, and it was a show, you know, so people got something for showing up. What was so amazing to me was that people who came to the event said, thank you so much for doing this. And I said, oh, you liked the show? And they said, well, yeah, we liked the show, but more than that, we didn't know what to do for you. We care about you. We've watched you guys go through this, and we honestly didn't know what to say, and we didn't know what to do. So thank you for telling us what we could do. I could come here and watch the show and have paid $20 for my ticket, and now I've done something for you. I got to show up for you. And I went, what? And they said, thank you for, you know, helping us to figure out how we do that. And it was the same thing when people, because it was, you know, one set of friends that we invited to that, and then when it was our friends who did the big give for us, they asked a whole other set of friends, people that I didn't even know, who I still carry with me. Can I tell you? Like, I can think of names of people that I've never met, but that wrote a check because they said, you know, I've heard about what you're doing, and it's important to me, and I want to be a part of something bigger than what I have going on today. And they said, thank you, because I, you know, have forgotten that everything isn't wonderful for everyone else. I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine. But, you know, don't exclude people from the opportunity to help your child. Let them. They consider it a gift. And for people who don't, who, you know, then they won't donate. That's okay. It's okay. But there are ways to raise money. I have heard of people being sponsored by a sorority or a fraternity because they have hours. In order to have their charter at the local college, they have hours that they have to devote to some kind of philanthropic entity. Well, your child's journey through autism counts as a philanthropic journey, right? And I have heard of families being sponsored by a sorority so that the sorority comes in and does extra hours of ABA, by the way, and does fundraisers, whether it's a car wash or a bake sale or whatever, to raise money for the family. There are ways of getting this done. We just have to let go of our old ideas of how to do things and get into that mindset of packing that tartar sauce. We're going after Moby Dick. We're gonna find the way. I guarantee you, if you put yourself in that mindset, ideas will come to you, or a friend's gonna come to you and say, hey, I've been thinking about this. Why don't we do this? There's a way to get this done. I swear to you, I'm not the only person. I believed that there wasn't a way to do it, and I found my way through the help of other people. You can do it too. Si se puede. I always like to say that. We can do this, okay? So think about it. Think about it, and if you need suggestions, if you want to write to me and say, here's what I have in my plus column. You know, I have a sister that juggles, I don't see how that can help me, and I, you know, have a friend that wrote this book. Write to me, I'll tell you how to put those two things together to raise money. Seriously. I love the challenge. I love to problem solve those kinds of things. So you can write to us. We're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna come back, we're gonna do our NET tip and our DTT tip of the week. So stick with us.
My name is Monique Erickson. I'm a senior supervisor here at CARD in the training department.
What kinds of things should we take into consideration when working with preschool children?
Well, when you're working with preschool-age children, a lot of things you want to consider is one, that they are little, so you are working with children who maybe their attention isn't as long as you might expect. You've got to work on that. They're young. They may be napping still, or probably in the process of fading that nap out, but that nap may be still there, and so that's definitely going to be a variable in their day when you are trying to plan when is the best time to do some of these lessons. So they probably have more time on their hands because they're not in school all day, but that doesn't mean, you know, that nap might still be there, which would affect their scheduling of the day. You know, what are their reinforcers, you know, things like that you have to kind of consider for those children who are that age.
What kinds of reinforcement should we give?
You know, that always is going to vary per child, so you have to kind of see what your child's into, but just the typical beginning play type toys. So if they're really starting out, they might be still doing some of those cause and effect puzzles type things and moving in then to more kind of constructive play. So some of those Legos of blocks and things like that, if that's what your child likes. Bubbles, some of the kids like music and things like that. You really just have to do an assessment of what does your child find interesting and fun, and incorporate those things.
Are there any secrets to keeping preschool children motivated?
Well, you have to do what I was just talking about, really find those things that they find fun and reinforcing, and that's going to be your key to finding motivation. So you have to find what do they want, you know, and to start off at preschool, you may still be, especially if the child hasn't had anything prior to this, still working at those real tangible, maybe edible reinforcers to start off with, pairing those with other fun things, and then eventually getting rid of the foods and so forth. So you might have to what we call, you know, establish some of those reinforcers like tickles and bubbles and fun activities. They may have to start off with pairing those with some fun, the fun things with a Cheerio or something like that to start off, if that's what that child wants. But you have to have that motivation in place to get the learning going.
Is there a specific amount of time that they can work?
Well, I think that's really important to stop and think about that. They're little, you know, they can't be expected to, you know, sit and attend for a 3-hour session right out the gate. You know, they're little, they're going to need breaks, they're going to need frequent breaks during that session, and, you know, their attention isn't just going to, you know, you could schedule a 3-hour session, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the best use of their time, that they're going to really be able to maintain that time. So I really think you have to, you know, look at maybe doing 2-hour intervals or something like that, and just really decreasing or working up to, I mean, how far they can handle and stop there. So I wouldn't do more than probably 2 hours to start in one sitting.
How often should we give breaks to preschool children?
Well, when you're giving breaks to kids throughout your session, you know, every child's different, so it's going to completely vary on your child. You know, what is his ability to stay focused and attend to, you know, to the task. Hopefully you're building up as this goes, as they have more and more opportunities to practice that. You're going to find that over the course of time, the children are better able to attend and sit for some of these tasks. Early on, it's going to be difficult. So it's going to vary per child. In general, I mean, you might do an activity or two and then have them have a small break or so. It really just depends on the child. You might, do several lessons with small breaks in between, then go for a bigger break outside and get some fresh air, move them around, get some gross motor in there. It just completely depends on the child and what are their targets. When can you allow natural breaks into the session that might lead themselves into the next thing that you want to work on. But it's just important to really read their body language. How are they doing? There's no point in continuing with lesson after lesson when they're fading. They need a snack, they need a break, they need to move around. They're children. They need to be able to move and have some fun. The session should be fun, so they should be enjoying themselves.
How long should the breaks be?
The length of the breaks is just going to vary depending on your child and their ability to stay focused and how much of a break do they need. They're not extended. When I say a small break, I'm thinking, we finished a tabletop activity, they go to the floor and they have some downtime kind of. But when I say downtime, that doesn't mean I'm allowing them to fully engage in stereotypy or self-stimulatory behavior. Which might be something like lining up the cars or the blocks or something. It means that they're engaging in some kind of appropriate activity when they're on their own time. They're still being expected to utilize those skills that they're working on, but it's a break from a formal learning activity. So those are the small breaks I'm thinking of. Like when we do a couple learning tasks, they have a little bit of time to themselves, and then that allows me as the teacher to reset up and get myself organized and get my next lesson plan ready. And then, after several of those, you might want to find somewhere in between, however long you plan on going, a bigger break, so that maybe they're little, they need snacks, they need to eat. Maybe it's time to go out and have a snack, and maybe that's just a pure break on its own, or maybe that's where you incorporate some adaptive targets you have, like learning how to pick up using your pincer if that's a target. You can incorporate that into your snacks if possible, but you want to just make sure that they are getting frequent breaks and they're eating when they need to, so that they can be fresh and as alert as possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have so much to cover in so little time, so we're going to kind of buzz through. Normally I do our NET tip and our DTT tip of the week, and I do them kind of separate, but we're going to do both of them kind of together. So, excuse me. For our NET tip, and for those of you who are new to us, NET tip is natural environment training. When we do ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, we're going to use a lot of different things to help our child to learn a new skill. And one of the things that we're going to use on a regular basis is natural environment training, where we're going to let the child direct the activity. So in this way, it's really reinforcing to them. So it looks like play to them, right? Or them getting to do the thing that we want to do. And then we're just going to use what they're doing as a platform on which to work on other things. And we can do that with almost anything, right? So if you say to them, what do you want to do today? What do you want to go to the park, or do you want to go to the pool? What do you want to do? And they say, well, I want to go to the pool. Great, you go to the pool, and while you're at the pool, if one of the lessons that you're working on is greetings and salutations, that you come into the pool and other people are there, other kids are there, and you say, don't you want to say hello to them? And you prompt the child through it and give them an opportunity to work on it in the natural environment. So that's, any place we go, we can apply the lessons that we're learning to those specific circumstances. But one of the things that we can look at when we're working on natural environment training for children is that reading everything, so that if you're in the car and there are signs coming up and you point to the sign and you read the things on the sign, it's a great way of interacting. You're teaching, you're modeling tacting, you're modeling reading skills, and you're making connections in their brains. In fact, one of the things that we were told early on that can be very beneficial for some of our kids who have receptive language issues, where they're hearing things and not able to filter them, and for kids who are better at textual things, or if you're trying to work to help your child to sight read or to be able to read at all, is to put closed captioning on your television. Now, we're not saying that your child is hard of hearing, but think about it. You're constantly pairing text with words, and yes, there's a little bit of a delay, but text with words, text with words, text with words, over and over and over again, and your child's ability to read, if they're pre-reading, is going to go up. If your child has difficulties with receptive language and is already a reader, their receptive language is going to go up. And your child's association with text and words is going to go up in either case. So having that closed captioning on the TV, really beneficial, not just for kids with autism, by the way, for all of your kids, can be a really beneficial thing to do. It certainly doesn't hurt anyone to have the closed captioning on. Okay, so that's our NET tip for the week. So, you say to them, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to watch Dora the Explorer. Okay, let's watch Dora the Explorer and put the closed captioning on, and you're working on a wealth of other things as well. Woohoo! Okay, so then in terms of DTT, which is discrete trial teaching, DTT is a part of ABA, but it is not synonymous with ABA. It is one element of ABA. DTT is fabulous when we're trying to teach a new skill that previously probably seemed overwhelming and like something that the child couldn't possibly learn. What we do with DTT is condense it down into the smallest amount that we can teach something, and we absolutely guarantee that if the child, well, first of all, we're going to guarantee that they're going to be successful at it, right? We're going to make it impossible for them to fail whenever we can. And then when they do succeed at this small little element that's not the whole task, we're going to heavily reinforce them to make it worth their while to do this thing again. So whether it's tying shoes or learning how to do long division, we're going to break it down into small little increments. We're not going to try to teach the whole thing all at once, one small little increment, and that we're going to set them up for success by making sure that it's really clear. You do this, I'm going to do this, you do this, and then you're going to get reinforced for it, right? So timing is everything in DTT. That we want to make sure, if we're going to the trouble to pair these things up, we have to make sure that our timing is fabulous and spot on. So you say to the child, as we just saw earlier today with Jack Riley, you say, sit down. Okay, what we're teaching is compliance, that when I say the words sit down, you sit your fanny in the chair, and when you do, you get reinforcement. It might be me going, nice job, high five. It might be a sticker on a chart. It might be that you get part of a jelly bean or a potato chip or a piece of carrot or part of a hot dog or something, but you got something out of sitting down when I said sit down. What would happen, and what happens all the time when you blow the timing? If you say to somebody, sit down, and they sit down and you're busy doing something else, talking on the phone, doing something else, and 5 minutes later you go in and say, hey, that was a really good job sitting down. What happens is the connection is not made. I like to think of it as like little magnets, right? When you stick the magnet close and the other one, right? Or a little spark that comes out of, oh, they connected, right? And something new is made. But if they don't connect, right? We're not making anything special here. So we got to make sure that, especially in the beginning, we can work on waiting later on, right? And we will. But in the beginning, I say sit down, you sit down, your paycheck, it comes immediately. There is no waiting for that paycheck. How hard is it when we start a new job and there's a lag in the pay and you go to work and you work and you work and you work and you're, I didn't get paid yet, right? It's hard in the beginning. You're waiting, and how rewarding is that first paycheck, right? Well, we want to make sure that we don't make our kids wait so long for the paycheck that they decide to leave the job. Okay? And the job is whatever it is that we ask them to do. If it's sit down, they sat down, paycheck immediately. Because we're ensuring that it happens again and they're showing up at the job, which is sitting down. As I said, later on we can work on waiting, which is a really important skill. Okay. So there's our NET tip for the week, our DTT tip for the week. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'm absolutely going to answer the questions that we had overnight and this morning before we end the show, so stick with us.
I'm Joe Montaigne. As a father of a daughter with autism, I know the challenges that brings. Military families impacted by autism wage a battle on two fronts. One for their country and another for their children.
I know you God knows we're in a battle zone. Well, I'm fighting the war back here and I'm fighting it all alone.
With 1 in 88 military children diagnosed with autism, the families face extraordinary challenges. But there is hope. With intensive treatment, the lives of children with autism and their families can be changed. You can make a difference.
We've all been waiting for.
To learn how you can help a military child with autism, go to acttodayformilitaryfamilies.org. Thank you.
Maybe tomorrow.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Want to remind you that it's really great when you write in with questions. And some of you did over the weekend and this morning. So I want to take a couple of minutes to answer. We had 2 questions about diet. People writing in and saying, heard about diet and heard about GFCF and heard about some other diets. Do these things really work? Well, here, there's a long answer and there's a short answer, right? And the really short answer is that to my knowledge, nobody has been able to demonstrate scientifically that a GFCF diet is effective across our kids, across the kids in the spectrum. That there have been many studies that have tried to show, and they have not been able to show that, and I don't know why. I don't know what has to change in the study. I don't know what element of the different studies, but I have to be honest with you that that is the scientific evidence that across the groups of kids that they have used, there has not been any significant benefit. As a personal parent, I can tell you that in some cases, with some kids, there are parents who have sworn by it and said, my child benefited from it, and greatly. There have been parents who have said, we got a little bit of a benefit from it, and there are other parents who have said, we didn't see anything happen at all. That is my personal story of sharing what I have seen on this big spectrum, and my very personal story as a parent is that my son needed to go on a GFCF diet because he was having allergic reactions. I'm allergic to wheat. We saw a huge individual, I personally saw a huge individual change in my son as a result of being on a GFCF diet for his specific circumstances. I think it's really important for you to talk to people in your life, talk to your physician, and get information about your individual child. You can have your child tested to see whether it's warranted in your individual child. You have choices that you get to make. And I talked earlier about following your gut instincts and talking to experts. I think science is really important, and for some people, going on a GFCF diet when there's no medically warranted reason is way too much and overwhelming for them. For other people, it is, something that they feel strongly about, and in some cases, there are people who report back and say, we saw a huge difference. That is certainly my circumstance, that I saw a huge difference in my child. Can I know that for your child? Absolutely not. And again, science has not been able to demonstrate that across a range of children. So you need to have all that information and then consult your gut about what you want to do. I can only speak in my son's circumstance. We saw a big difference, but that is because of his ecosystem, which may not be your child's ecosystem. So if that sounds really vague, it's because I don't think that there is a cut and dried answer to it. But there you have it. And there is certainly a plethora of information about the diets on the internet. Somebody else wrote in and wanted to know about supplements and about taking pills because their child is not yet able to do the capsules, and it's really a drag, right? We had Sienna Greener-Wooten on the show last Thursday. It was Thursday, wasn't it, Emily? And she was here talking about a wide variety of things, but we asked her to address this for another viewer, and she said that it is a very slow process of having them swallow very minute things, a half of a dried lentil to start with, and then a progression into things. You can get capsules to practice with because some of it is opportunity, and you can get smaller capsules working up to a larger capsule. There are different cups. But I think across the board, what works is making there be a reinforcement for your child to do it. And that what we've heard time and time again from parents is if they knew that there was some huge reward coming for after they swallowed the first pill, that's really what got it done. You can work up to the different things so that there's not the panic and you don't have to worry as a parent. You can use the different cups, but ultimately what gets it done is that there is a promise of some huge reinforcement. I've told the story about the family that said, as soon as you swallow the first set of pills, we are leaving for Disneyland. The child swallowed the pills and they got in the car. It's that deliver the reinforcement. Make sure it's something you can deliver right when they do it. All right. But check out that clip with Sienna Greener-Wooten. It is on YouTube, and you can watch that. There are lots of different ways. There's the YouTube channel. Lots of different ways to reach us, because as this show ends, the conversation continues. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us and different ways that you can watch us. I want you to know, while you're seeing all these different things, how much we enjoy your input, how much we count on it, and how much it drives the decisions we make about what we talk about here. So please let us know what you want to see, how you want to see it, when you want to see it. That's what we want to do and deliver that for you. We talked a lot today about early intervention and how important it is, and you guys resoundingly said the funding is what's holding you back. Please write in and tell us what kind of help you need towards that end, because we talked about some fundraising things today. It's important that we get in that mindset about we're going to get it done one way or the other. I really do think that that's a huge part of this. And I know that sounds airy-fairy when you're sitting there and you're like, I don't even know how we're putting food on the table this week. So how are we going to fund this? But let me just tell you, I have no idea how we did it. At the end of the day, like if I were to put everything in the column, I don't know, but we made the decision that we were, and we survived it. We did. So if I could do that, I know you can, and I want to help you to do that. So stick with us. Tomorrow, we're going to have Sue Cho with us at 11 o'clock. So you won't want to miss that. Until tomorrow, please give your kiddos a hug from us. Bye-bye for now.